Okay, Dr. Chetty. Good evening, everybody in the Far East. Good afternoon to the people in Africa and Europe. We're going to start the meeting, even if we don't have too many participants on Facebook yet. I'm sorry, on the Zoom. But we will start because otherwise it will take too long. We'll start off with Dr. Shankara Chetty. With this introduction. Dr. Chetty, if you don't know, is one of the heroes of the pandemic. So let's listen to him, please, what he has to say. Thank you very much. Dr. Chetty?
Thank you, Manuel. Can everyone hear me? Okay. My chat today, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. My chat today is to try and bring a natural science perspective to health, and in so its relation to cancers. I am a natural science biologist, and I tend to root all my medical interventions in an understanding of nature. And nature has its processes, and these processes do not need randomized double-blind clinical trials to prove that they exist. So we all know not to plant in winter. So nature has certain rules and regulations that I think need to be highlighted, might prove to be controversial, but also need to be researched so that we can get a decent understanding of the human body, the processes that govern it, and of course, how to intervene when there is ill health. We've all seen recently that there has been an explosion of cancers around the world, cancers that are growing very rapidly and spreading very quickly. This is likely to be because of the affectation of the immune response by the vaccination process. And of course, we need to understand why that is happening to help save all these lives. So the talk today is going to be about my opinion on nature and how it influences our health. And I hope it will stimulate some healthy debate and maybe direct some research in more appropriate directions. To start with, I think we need to classify what we call a healthy diet, because this has been the biggest thing that people have been following in an attempt to get to good health. And we got to consider in that healthy diet, whether we are actually doing the right things and whether we're following the right principles in formulating such a healthy diet. Now, just as a broad understanding, the cell is the basic unit of life. So all living forms exist as aggregates of cells. So you've got animal cells and plant cells and bacterial cells. And so we'd look at the cell and try and figure from there what nature's intention is. Now, if you look at cells, they're either living or dead. And of course, we concern ourselves with those that are living. And if you look at living cells, they can be classified based on health into three categories. And every cell, no matter the human body or a plant, will fit into one of those three categories. A cell is either normal, and if it is normal, it properly fulfills the function for which it was made. So it's a heart cell being a heart cell and a kidney cell being a kidney cell. And that's a normal cell. If the cell is not normal, but alive, then it's either diseased or damaged. So you can take every cell in a human body and it'll be in one of those three categories, either normal, diseased, or damaged. Now, the aim to good health is to remove disease and damage timelessly. And we as medical professionals are sought after to encourage that kind of process. So when someone's diseased or damaged, they come to me to assist them get rid of that. So it's the understanding of the removal of disease and damage by nature that is vitally important in formulating strategies going forward, in dealing with health, ill health, and in dealing with damage, cancers, and so forth. So looking at these cells, when you look at a healthy diet, I think that's a misnomer, because no matter what you eat, whenever you eat, you are nourishing all three. Normal, disease, and damage will die. So if you nourish your garden, even the weeds would grow, even the diseased plants would grow. So food and nourishment is not discriminate in what it grows. And so it cannot select out the diseased and damaged tissue. But that is what we want to become healthy. So I think we need to delve a little deeper. Nature removes disease and damage by a process of deprivation or starvation. Now, deprivation or starvation is what occurs in winter. And when winter comes to your garden, the diseased and damaged plants in your garden are not resilient, and they will be selected out. They will die first. If you starve the population of people, the ones with disease and damage will die first. And so it is deprivation that removes disease and damage selectively. And so it is starvation that actually heals us rather than any nourishment. And it is the reason that when you get very ill, you lose your appetite. And you will only get that appetite back once the disease and damage has been resolved. So I think we need to get a better understanding of the interplay between nourishment and starvation. And we've seen that intermittent fasting has become something that people are starting to follow and understand the benefits of. We've also noticed that periods of starvation tend to improve responses to things. Recent articles have shown that a 72-hour fast can stimulate stem cells and reset immunity. A 72-hour fast can have beneficial effects on cancers. So it's important to understand the effect of starvation on the human body itself. Now, the biggest problem that we have is inflammation. If you look at any process, any illness, any disease, any damage, it's the inflammatory process that causes the problem. Acute inflammation can be beneficial in that it will heal or remove the offense. But if that sets into chronic inflammation, we sit with the problem. And so it's to address this kind of chronic inflammation that's vitally important. When a tree drops a leaf, it doesn't lose a branch. So we got to understand how apoptosis, or the process of natural killing, takes place without inflammation involved. And if we can understand that process, then we can use it to our advantage. So it's vitally important to understand this interplay with nature. Now, the next thing I'd like to touch on, so I think I've brought some controversy to what a healthy diet actually is. And the next thing I want to look at is the way we actually eat and what's important in eating itself. Now, when you fertilize, let's look at a garden. When you fertilize a garden, irrespective, everything will grow. The weeds, the diseased plants, the damaged plants, and the ones that you want. So you have to weed and prune that garden before you actually fertilize it. So that's where the starvation comes in. It's the starvation that does the weeding and the pruning. But of course, we got to put that into context as to how to starve and when to eat. Now, looking at our planetary obsession with good nutrition, irrespective of the quality of nutrition, if you fertilize your garden at the wrong time, it will do more damage than good. So irrespective of the quality of the fertilizer, it is the timing of fertilizing that actually determines the outcome. So if you use the best fertilizer at the wrong time, it can be very detrimental. And if you use a very poor quality fertilizer at the exact right time, it can be very, very, very beneficial. So timing is far more important than the quality of the fertilizer. And so I think it's vitally important to understand when it's the appropriate time to eat rather than what to eat. The preoccupation with what to eat is, I think, a little over-exaggerated. Now, to understand that, I think we need to understand from a human perspective that we are primates And as primates, we should look very closely at how primates feed and to understand why nature meant it to be that way. Now, when you look at primates, they eat almost everything that humans eat, leaves, roots, fruit, veg, nuts, meat. They eat almost everything we eat. But there's two things that primates don't eat. Primates don't eat grass and grasses, and we do. We eat barley, rye, sugarcane are all grasses. And of course, I've never seen a primate milk a cow, so I think dairy is something we should restrict. If you look at the planet as a whole, the two commonest foods that I'd say a large majority of inhabitants are allergic to is both dairy and wheat. And if you wonder why, I think a primate can answer that question quite conclusively. We're not supposed to be exposed to those kind of things. Then as well, when you look at how a primate eats, he doesn't have a high carbohydrate load in whatever he eats. His exposure to carbohydrates would be through some roots and tubers. It can be through a ripened sweet fruit, or if he decides to raid a beehive and get some honey. And so that's the only real carbohydrate that he gets in his diet. The rest of it is solely protein and fat. And so we got to understand that this is what a primate eats, and this is what we've been designed to actually eat. The other thing that happens with this feeding of a primate is that he has no choice. And I think the choice that we're given according to our diets is part of a huge problem in the formation of disease and damage to our human body. A primate has to eat seasonally. Whatever's grown in the environment around him, he has to eat it whenever it's there. And he has to eat locally grown. He doesn't have the ability to import or export like we do, and eat out of season like we do. So I think that is vitally important in the way we live and heal as human beings. We are seasonal creatures. There is always this interplay between life and death. And it's the understanding of this interplay between life and death that will get us to understand the self-healing, restorative potential of the human body. And so I think that the timing of eating and the understanding of starvation is vitally important. More important actually than what we actually eat, because what we eat and is really the environment that we live in. Food is part of this environment. Now, I would say that the appropriate way to eat would be to eat only when you are hungry. That would be the right time or the appropriate time to nourish the human body. So, like your garden, you would first weed and prune it and then fertilize it. So, I've been teaching my patients over many years to make sure that hunger is the first thing in their day before they indulge in any eating. So I don't encourage patients to have breakfast. I think that's a mistake. I encourage patients to get up and get on with their day until they find that they are getting hungry. And once they find that they're hungry, they can sit to eat. When they eat, they must make sure that they eat things that are seasonal and locally grown. And they must eat to the point of satisfaction, because after all, that's the aim of nutrition. And they should restrict their periods of eating to 8 hours in a day. So from the time you start, 8 hours later, you stop. But you make sure in those 8 hours, you got sufficient nourishment or sufficient satisfaction from the nourishment that's in front of you. Now, just to put perspective, seasonality, one, we understand the summer fruit in summer is very good for you. It can be detrimental in winter. So you got to eat the nourishment you need for the season. And of course, when you look at locally grown, the ground in a specific area has certain nourishment. Certain plants will grow there and certain won't. Those that thrive have to withstand the local environmental and climatic conditions that are unique to that area. And if you eat those fruits, then you will be resilient for that same environment. So people can tell you that the fruit from another environment is sweeter, but it's sweeter for the people living in that other environment. And you're meant to eat the sour one if you want to thrive in your environment. So I think we've become a bit too picky about our taste. That has caused a lot of problems. Just to give two simple examples as to how this pans out in nature itself. If you look at wild animals tend to eat this way. They get up and they're not preoccupied with food. They're more interested in socializing, playing, peeing, that kind of thing, until they are hungry. And when they are hungry, they will start to eat. They do not stop until they are satisfied. So they don't keep food for another meal later on in the day. So you never see a monkey keeping 2 bananas for dinner. He makes sure he eats till he's completely satisfied, because it's that satisfaction that suppresses hunger. You cannot suppress hunger in any other way. It's something where you eat till you're satisfied and then you don't crave food anymore. So these animals eat in this way. So essentially what they are doing is weeding and pruning their bodies with an early start to the day with starvation, and then feeding their bodies. So they remove all the diseased and damaged tissue in their body that they might have picked up yesterday very timeously, and never give it a chance to thrive. And so when you look at wild animals, they die of old age, they die of predation. Very seldomly do you find them dying of disease or damage. And we don't find the need to mass vaccinate all of them. When you compare them to your domestic animals, cats, cows, sheep, dogs, horses, they're having all the problems we are having as human beings. And they're getting liver diseases, cancers, heart attacks, strokes, all the things that human beings suffer with, we're finding it in our domestic animals. But it can't be the food, because I don't indulge in dog food. So when you look at it, the reason for this is that they do not wait for hunger before they eat, they are fed. They have a timing to eat. And so even if they're not hungry, they feed themselves. And if, like human beings, with breakfast, lunch, and supper, and so we keep growing the disease and damage and not giving starvation a chance to weed and prune it. And that's the reason we see all these diseases in all the domesticated animals. As well, you can see this example if we look back generations. Generations ago, people did not have breakfast. They lived more in communal lifestyles, and ate seasonally and locally grown. And as well, they didn't have breakfast, they went out and worked, and when they were hungry, they came back and ate till they were satisfied. And so the period of eating was shortened. Remember, at that time, the nutrition, they had very little choice with the nutrition. It's what's seasonal and locally grown that they were forced to eat. And of course, a lot of people lived in poverty and could only eat what was economically viable for them. However, if you look back generations, we never had these problems with chronic illnesses, metabolic syndromes, cancers, all that kind of thing. And we've got to look at why. Because we've improved nutritional quality and we've improved access to food, but we haven't improved the general health of the population. So they were actually healthier than we were, simply because they weeded and pruned their bodies every single day of all the damage and disease they picked up the previous day before they fertilized all the normal that was left after that. And so when they grew old, they didn't have all this disease and damage to deal with. So if you look at a cancer is a damaged cell that probably occurred 30 or 40 years ago. It was one cell that got damaged. Why it got damaged is really irrelevant, whether you drank or smoked or exposed to a chemical or whatever it is, it was a cell that got damaged. And if you starved yourself every day before eating, that cell would have been put under stress, and being diseased or damaged wouldn't have been as viable and would have died. But unfortunately, we've spent 40 years feeding it timeously with breakfast, lunch, and supper, and now it's grown into the largest weed in your body. And so it takes over your life. So I think this shows us the importance of understanding nature and understanding where we as human beings need to intervene. Like I said, there was a study that showed that fasting had great benefit to health and to the suppression of cancers. There was also research that showed that a complete carbohydrate restriction to a diet can cause cancers to go into remission and to actually start to disappear. Because cancers tend to get their nourishment from carbohydrates, glucose especially, and they use a process of fermentation because of their mitochondrial damage to actually keep burning energy or keep making energy. And if you restrict that glucose, in whatever form it might be, starches and the rest, you can starve that cancer and it will start to die. And so this effect of starvation on cancers is actually, or calorie restriction on cancers, is vitally important to understand. When you look at animals as well, they do things automated. They live in environments, they have to eat what's there, so they have no choice. And I think with human beings, the choices are where the problem lies. We're taught to eat breakfast, lunch, and supper. We're taught to eat specific things for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And we're taught to restrict our portions so that we don't get fat. But I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think we need to listen to our human body. And when we are hungry, eat to the point of complete satisfaction. That is the right way to be doing it. This is something that is also vitally important in psychology. The two things that influence the psychology of the planet are food and sex. The ability to thrive and to reproduce, vitality and virility. And both are exactly the same kind of emotion. We all know what we like, be it food or our partner. From the day we're born, we know our preferences. We can't discuss that with others. It's very unique, individual. But we also know that the only way to satisfy those two desires is to indulge in it. And then the desire goes away once satisfied. And so I think it's vitally important to understand that there is a psychological impact of eating. If you ate all the food you love to the point of complete satisfaction, then the world could burn around you and you wouldn't really care. And no fancy house or car would ever bring you that kind of satisfaction. And so is this the reason we're seeing that generations ago, we had a calmer population that were more willing to indulge with each other and more willing to listen to each other and not so aggressive in their outlook? And is it because we never eat to the point of satisfaction, which needs you to eat what you love and also needs for you to be hungry before you start? Is it that we never reach that point of satisfaction, that the planet we live on now is inhabited by people that are psychologically unsatisfied? And so the issues that we have with violence and the rest globally. So I hope this brings some understanding to where we need to look, to understand that nature holds a lot of keys and that we need to be cautious about just taking a path. We need to be cautious about where we look with science and the kind of advice we give people for the future of health. A lot of what we advised is unfortunately commercially driven. And so I think that needs to be understood. I've advised my patients now over the past 20 years to follow this kind of lifestyle. Get up, eat only when you're hungry, eat till you're satisfied, and then don't eat till you're hungry again. Restrict your carbohydrates, restrict your time of feeding to 8 hours, and try and choose your food based on seasonality and what is locally grown in your specific area. And I've seen some amazing benefits with it, both in restoring metabolic health, but also in getting patients off diabetic medication, reducing patients' antihypertensive medications, patients starting to get off antidepressant medications because of being more satisfied with their day by eating to the point of satisfaction. I've had patients completely get off diabetic medications. And of course, so when you look at from a dietary perspective, I think the timing is most important. As well, we got to look at, and in short, exercise and how it influences metabolic health. It's important to realize that exercise impacts on your metabolism, not through the length or intensity of exercise, but not through the length of exercise, but more through the intensity of the exercise itself. So short bursts of maximum intensity reset your metabolism or speed it up. And so spending 2 hours at the gym will train you to be stronger and do what you're doing a lot better, but it's not going to impact on your metabolism and speed it up. Yet a quick, short, maximum sprint for a period of about a minute would reset your metabolism. That feeling of jelly in your muscles is actually the anaerobic respiration that you've actually forced by such sudden burst of activity, and that is what resets your metabolism. So the preoccupation with exercise being healthy, I think as well, is a little misplaced. It's the exercise itself, the burst of exercise that resets metabolism. And if you look at animals around you, they understand this. It's intrinsic to them. And that's the reason sometimes you'll find your dog bolting around your garden for apparently no reason. And then he sits down with a smile on his face. He's realized his metabolism slowed down and he shocked it back into its peak. Same with buffalo grazing on the Serengeti. You'll find one in the back seems to lose his mind and starts bounding around recklessly for a minute or two and then settles back to eating. It's a way of stimulating metabolism. And it can only happen with shocking your system through a sudden burst of activity. So I hope this brings some perspective. And I hope that with our talk today and Dr. Landrito, that we start to look at other means to treat the ailments that we have and not discount anything around us. We are at war with a pharmaceutical industry that judges everything on commercial interests. And of course, our aim is to protect and serve humanity as doctors. And we, at this point in time, face a major global crisis. And I think it requires a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking for us to find some solutions to things. Solutions that not necessarily are commercially viable, but help our brothers and sisters on this planet face the disease and damage that is on the horizon. We are going to face a pandemic of vaccine side effects. We've seen the increases in all-cause mortality globally, and so we need to be prepared. But to be prepared is not to give the pharmaceutical industry a leeway to make this an economic endeavor. And so I think it's vitally important that we empower doctors that are willing to look outside the box, and we need to take back the research and the understanding of medicine, science, and how we use it to the benefit of humanity. I hope that doctors around the world will look at these kind of things, find ways to collaborate on new research so that it doesn't get sidelined or shelved because of commercial interests. I thank you for your time, and I'd like to pass back to Manuel.
Manolo, I think you're muted.
Sorry, thank you very much, Dr. Chetty. We've got lots to learn from you yet, but we've got short time, so we'll pass on the floor to Dr. Landrito. Dr. Alan Landrito, go ahead, please. For those people who don't know who Dr. Alan Landrito is, Dr. Alan Landrito is the father of ivermectin in the Philippines for COVID. He has been directly responsible for saving the lives of thousands of people. When I'm saying thousands of people, I do not exaggerate. Thousands of people. Go ahead, Dr. Landrito.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manolo. Last time he was calling me the giant, now he's calling me the father. But actually, I'm just a common government physician in the Philippines that so happened to be ready during the pandemic, and I made efforts to bring ivermectin to the Filipinos as early as July 2020. So I spearheaded the distribution of ivermectin after I found the mechanistic value of this. It has 6 mechanisms of action. I was saying this could be the champion for the COVID-19. There were 6 mechanisms of action altogether were specific against the SARS-CoV-2 virus and also the COVID-19 syndromes. Now, our topic is about curbing turbocancers. And we were so fortunate we had Dr. Shankara Chetty who gave us a background about the metabolic background that brought about the development of cancers, and with his recommendations on how to go about it. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Shankara Chetty. And it just so happened that in the Philippines, after I distributed ivermectin during the height of the pandemic, as I mentioned, as early as July 2020, although the government was opposing, they have given 5 different opposition against ivermectin. They had advisories, and they were saying so many things against it. And of course, the many doctors will tend to believe the government, not, I mean, the government health authorities, not the minority ones. No? In any case, we persisted in giving ivermectin to people, because during that time, many people were really, both the rich and the poor were not getting access to hospitals. There were no doctors. There were not much doctors attending, and no rooms. And they were not allowing relatives to be at the bedside of the patient. And we are just hearing people will just be brought out and they have to be cremated. So even those who can afford to go to the hospitals, they cannot go for those reasons. And also they will also choose not to go to the hospital because it's very uncomfortable for them to be staying without a loved one at the bedside. So it was really a very, I know all over the world really had this terrible experience during the pandemic. But then we had very good experience in giving ivermectin. Some people didn't have any access to other medications. Like, for example, in the Philippines, they were pushing on remdesivir. And before they were pushing it on very high price, and many people cannot afford it. When we were giving out ivermectin, it was so cheap, everybody can afford it. And I also made the hope to give it even to the indigents. If they can afford, we give it for free, because we really wanted to help people. And because of that, I was so blessed to hear all the experiences they were saying, they were experiencing. I mean, for example, we were recommending, in the beginning, I was just recommending, because nobody knew what's the proper dose. I was just basing on the parasitic, but then have to modify it a bit. So instead of 0.2, I give 25 microgram per kilogram body weight. And before I was recommending prophylaxis, 1 capsule every 3 weeks. And then after that, that was in the beginning. Came January, we have to revise it 1 capsule every 2 weeks. Then came May, we have to give it 1 capsule every week. And then October 2021, we have to give it 1 capsule every 3 days, or every 3 to 4 days, or twice a week. But then one good thing we learned was when we were giving it for early and late treatments. And we didn't know how to dose it then, but we wanted to give the maximum dose that we can give that is on the safe, that the patient remains on the safety zone. And so, but yet we don't have any data except parasitic dose. When we were looking also on the empirical data from other countries who were giving ivermectin. But then it so happened by accident, after so many months of getting the attention of the lawmaking bodies, the government in the Philippines, we were given the chance to face the Congress. That was already March 29, 2021. And in the morning of that day, I was anticipating they will ask me how sure I am, how safe is ivermectin. So I thought to myself, I will take 10 capsules, and that's equivalent to 2.5 milligram per kilogram body weight. So that's about 150 milligrams that I took in the morning. And the hearing was in the afternoon. And so, although they didn't ask me about the question I was anticipating, I got the chance to take a very high dose. That's 15 times the parasitic dose in a day. And what I experienced was I was feeling so sleepy. And then the next day, I slept after the Congress hearing. I slept 13 hours, very deep sleep. And then when I woke up, there were glaring, there were tunnel vision, there were bubbles I was seeing. I was seeing some glares and all that, many visual symptoms. So I told it to I appointed many, the Philippines has so many islands, many regions, many provinces. I appointed the delivery channels everywhere. So I just informed them that I took 10 capsules. And that was March. And then came the beta, the gamma, then the delta variants. And it was really terrible. And people really getting terrible COVID. And so I told my delivery channels, I took 10 capsules and it was okay. So when they got COVID themselves, And some of them even got severe COVID. They were taking high ivermectin, 10 capsules. Here we have 15 milligrams, so that is 2.5 milligram for 10 capsules. Some were even taking 3 milligram per kilogram body weight. Some were even taking 4 milligrams, and highest I heard was taking 5 milligram per kilogram body weight. That's very high. That's I think 40 times the parasitic dose, and we're taking it daily. So we learned from that even on severe COVID, we were reversing the COVID syndrome if we take it very high. So we learned from experience, and I was getting all the information. They were all reporting to me what happened, and so there was even an infant who got severe COVID with diarrheic presentation, and we gave 2.5 milligram per kilogram in 3 days, daily for 3 days, and the infant was recovered after 3 days. The father had severe COVID, the mother had moderate COVID, the sibling had moderate COVID, the infant had severe COVID. All were saved by the ivermectin. Okay, that was COVID. Now we're going to talk about cancers now. And after we were doing everything so that they will not roll out the vaccine. We were trying to get the attention of the government health authorities, but they were not listening. They were not giving us a chance to be heard. There is this group in the Philippines we call the CDCPH, Concerned Doctors and Citizens of the Philippines. We've been always wanting to have a dialogue with them, but they were not giving us the chance. Anyway, still they persisted in rolling out the vaccine. And then months thereafter, we are seeing a lot of problems. And so we were also putting up protocols how to handle the vaccine-injured patients. Some patients have, hypercoagulability problems. Sadly, they will have the sudden adult death syndrome, right? And then some have bleeding disorders, some have inflammatory problems, some have autoimmune disorders, some have allergic reactions, and then the late sequelae started to set in. What are those? Cancers. We are seeing turbo cancers. We also call it the wildfire cancers. This went through 1, 2, 3, just right away it's stage 4. So how are we going to handle these problems? And so let me show you the slide. I've been, during the height of pandemic, I was attending on Zoom consultations to people for 6 hours, even 8 hours sometimes, 3 times a week, so I can attend to the cases. So I made it on a Zoom conference like this, and we went to 500 audience, even 1,000 audience at the time. But then we have to do it that way so that people will learn. The questions can be answered from the questions raised by the other people. So that was the most practical way we could do it then. And so I was giving this. Let me share my slides, please. Oh, wait. How do I share my slide? In my consultation, I was first giving a slide presentation for 30 minutes. And one of the slides is this one. I discussed the 4 properties of ivermectin: the antiparasitic, the antiviral, the immunomodulator, and the anti-cancer property. So I'll just show this slide now. So this is what the slide I was showing that time. You can see ivermectin there in the center. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can, doctor. Yes, we can. Yes, we can, doctor.
So you see the ivermectin there in the center. It acts on cancer stem cells. It acts on combination therapy. That means you can combine it with chemotherapeutic agents. No? It reverses multi-drug resistance. And there is this cancer cell death that it can bring about. It can bring about cell death through apoptosis, autophagy, and pyroptosis. So apoptosis, this is actually programmed cell death. Normal cells will have apoptosis. That's for the normal cell. The problem with the cancer cells, they lost apoptosis, but ivermectin will restore that one. So at a certain period of time, cells will have to die. It has a specific lifespan, and according with the cellular turnover, then it will be renewed by the coming new cells. But the old ones have to die. But in case of cancers, they lost that capacity for apoptosis. But ivermectin will restore that one. Also, ivermectin was found to be inducing autophagy. You know, chemotherapeutic agent may induce cancer cell death, but if there's no autophagy, what happens to the dead cells? So many dead cells will be there. It will cause a lot of problem. But ivermectin will induce it by whatever mechanistic way, maybe enhancing the macrophages giving it more power to perform autophagy. And then pyroptosis. Pyroptosis is a process whereby ivermectin increases reactive oxygen species generation that will lead to these cell deaths. But then if you look into another pathway, that's PAK1. Can you see that in the pink? PAK1, when we look about what is PAK1, this is actually abbreviation of P21 activated kinase 1. It's a serine threonine kinase required for growth of, you will be impressed by this, 70% of human cancers. So 70% of all non-human cancers, such as prostate, colon, breast, even neurofibromatosis, is going through this P21 activated kinase 1, PAK1, and certain other pathways involved with PAK1, AKT, mTOR, WNT. These are all stuffs known by oncologists. It's so technical. I myself am not an oncologist, so I don't know all of this. But we can read through so many literatures. We can appreciate that ivermectin is acting through these pathways. There are several other pathways, and I have a long list of it. I didn't mention here, but this is how practical ivermectin can be in using against cancer. And I will relate to you later on how we're using it. So, and the effect will be the anti-cancer effect. It will affect cell cycle arrest, suppression of proliferation, metastasis, and even angiogenesis. Okay. So I came across one study when they used ivermectin on HeLa cells. HeLa cells, by the way, are the first successful attempt to isolate, to immortalize an isolated human-derived cancer cells. This comes from cervical cancers. They gather the cervical cells, cancer cells, and they were able to immortalize it. They put it in a petri disk, and they put the substrate needed, the nutrients needed, and the cells can live forever. It will proliferate forever. No apoptosis, it's not dying. It keeps on multiplying, hypermitotic. So many experiments are being done on HeLa cells. And what happened when they did ivermectin on HeLa cells? They found out that when they introduced ivermectin to HeLa cells, it has significantly inhibit migration, inhibit proliferation of the cells, and also induce apoptosis. Terrific, no? So with just this basic knowledge, we are not really in depth in knowing the oncological, details of all these things. We just know that there is an anti-cancer property of ivermectin, but we don't have it. We cannot find anywhere any standardized dosing or recommendations on how to use it. We use it anyway. That's how we learned in using it in COVID-19. The same way we're using it in cancer, because now we're seeing a lot of cancers. I'm sure that many doctors, all the doctors here are seeing also this phenomenon taking place. No? It's because these vaccines are made up of mRNA and even adenovirus with the DNA. And we know it's interfering with the human genome. No? And then there can every kind of accidents that can happen, and the genomic material is, when you interfere with it, then there's every possibility that you will induce carcinogenesis, even teratogenesis, and that's what's taking place. Now, the question is, how are we going to deal with these cancers? What do we have at hand? We have ivermectin. We have proven how safe it is. One of the things that the Department of Health in the Philippines was saying is that ivermectin can cause brain damage. It's not true. Another thing they were saying, it can harm the liver and the kidney. It's also not true. Why? We have given it to hundred thousands of patients, maybe 100 or 200,000 of patients, not a single case of brain damage. And some people we gave, they were taking so high. I couldn't control the patients. So people were panicking, and they only have ivermectin there. They just take as much as they can. And you know what happens? At a certain level, the first side effect, they will have visual disturbance. I mentioned to you already, tunnel vision, glaring, some bubbles, things like that. And then next, there will be imbalance. Sometimes your gait will be, you cannot achieve a good balance, although you can still walk straight. And then you go higher, people get disoriented. And people go higher, they get hallucinations, different kinds of. And when they do that, when they have that, I just tell them, okay, stop taking ivermectin for 1-2 days, everything will be gone. And it's true. In 24 to 48 hours, all these symptoms were disappeared. These side effects disappeared, and it has left no damage on the brain. There's no what you call brain fog. There's no loss of memory, nothing like that. And we have seen patients who have taken it daily and are very high. The kidney and the liver function tests were all normal. The safety of this ivermectin, we are yet to see an overdose of ivermectin. Yes, I don't call them overdose. I just call those who already experienced these side effects as spillover. What I'm saying is just my theory that maybe I was thinking it's already spilling over the central nervous system. That's why they're experiencing these things. But then, even then, we don't believe it can cause brain damage, no? And because we haven't seen problems like that, no? And we are also targeting even gliomas, brain cancers. There are a lot of this. And how can we do that? We have to allow ivermectin to cross the blood-brain barrier for it to do its function. And we are not afraid anymore because of our experience. And I was looking into another paper on leukemia. Ivermectin increases the intracellular chloride ion concentrations in leukemic cells. Now, these chloride ions, they were saying it is on the gamma aminobutyric acid chloride channels in other organisms, not on humans. No? That's why, on the parasite, that's why parasites are that's why the parasites are being succumbing to ivermectin. But in leukemic cells, they have also found that it increased intracellular chloride ion channels, and this chloride influx actually is accompanied by plasma membrane hyperpolarization, but it did not change the mitochondrial membrane potentials. This is very important because now if we look into cancers, many research are taking place now, a number of it, not really that many. They're looking into the metabolic basis of cancer, not doing as has been done on the paradigm that cancer is due to genetic problems. They were seeing it is due to metabolic derangement. Metabolic, how we have been taking our nutrition in the wrong way, just like Dr. Chetty was discussing. and then the metabolic, the disruption on how we get energy from the nutrients is disrupted. There is a gradual disruption of what we call the oxidative phosphorylation. In the Krebs cycle, our cells derive energy from the present within the presence of oxygen, right? But then in cancer cell, they have found out it goes into another pathway, doesn't need oxygen. That's why cancer develops on anaerobic conditions through a gradual compensatory fermentation mechanism. And so they were just, Dr. Chetty, I also mentioned not to take too much of these carbohydrates. No? This is one way of approaching cancer. And then he was also saying about autophagy when we do fasting, he was mentioning just take 8 hours of eating and then 16 hours you have to do fasting. That's intermittent fasting. And of course, those are very effective. But one thing I have seen about ivermectin, autophagy will start setting in after 16 hours of fasting. But if you're taking ivermectin, autophagy already sets in after it has caused apoptosis, pyroptosis. It has killed the cancer cells. Through apoptosis, the cancer cells will die, and then there will be autophagy. You don't need to wait 18 hours before before achieving autophagy. So that's how we are seeing the mechanistic explanation of ivermectin. And so right now we are happy to tell you we are treating a lot of cancer patients like breast cancer. Some of them, many are indigents. No? They have already advanced breast cancer, not exactly turbo cancers. Maybe they have these cancers before the pandemic, but it has grown so advanced that the breast has, many breast cancer patients are with open wounds. All the breast has almost fallen and all the tumors there, it's bleeding, it's smelling bad, and they have no solutions. It has invaded even the ribs and the other areas. But then when we give ivermectin, say 2 milligram per kilogram, no? Or we start at 1 milligram per kilogram, then we go 1.5 milligram per kilogram, then 2 milligram per kilogram. They can tolerate it. In just a matter of say 3-4 days, the smell is disappearing. It doesn't smell anymore. And then after a few weeks persisting on the ivermectin, the wounds are closing gradually, and the tumors are shrinking gradually. We have not achieved a cure yet, but I suppose it may take, if it has to take 1 year of treating them, we will do that. And we are not afraid that ivermectin will give any problem, long-term and high dose. And why we are basing that we have achieved 1 cure already. It's a case of gallbladder cancer. So happens she's a doctor herself, Dr. I will not mention her name. Maybe she's here. If she's here, then she will talk about it herself. No. I had a chance to meet her 2020 on a radio interview, and I told her, Doctora, ivermectin has anti-cancer properties, and she asked me how much should I take, because she has cancer. But I didn't know what kind of cancer she has. I mean, how terrible her cancer was. And I said, the highest you can take, that's it. That's how you take it. There's no recommendation. So because being a doctor herself, she treated herself. And later on, we learned about what she did. And she was saying she took 8 capsules, that's equivalent to 2 milligram per kilogram body weight, no? Daily for 6 months. And what cancer she has is a gallbladder cancer the size of a fist, this big. And on the first 4 days, she was having visual problems, visual side effects, but she persisted in taking it anyway. And then she said in 1 week time, it also disappeared, the side effects. And then for 6 months, she was taking it. And every month she was monitoring her creatinine and her SGPT, the kidney and the liver function test. Only those two tests. And she was doing monthly ultrasound. And the ultrasound was showing it is shrinking gradually, little by little. And all the liver function tests and the kidney function tests were all normal. She persisted for 8 months, taking 2 milligram per kilogram body weight. That's 8 capsules in the 15 milligrams that we have here. And then after that 6 months, she continued for another 4 months with 6 capsules. That's 1.5 milligram. Same results. In every month, the ultrasound, it is getting smaller and smaller. And then another 4 months, she took 4 capsules. That's 1 milligram per kilogram body weight. 4 capsules daily. After 14 months, you know what happened? Her ultrasound was showing a normal gallbladder. No, not a trace of the cancer. And yet her creatinine and her SGPT, the liver and the kidney function tests were all normal. So because of this, and I am also partnering with Dr. Aisha, we are treating cancer patients today. We have not really been that methodological about it, unlike Manuel here. He has done really a methodological approach because we have so many patients, we could not even monitor them daily. And on even weekly, sometimes we just wait for them to call. But of course, we are not saying ivermectin will treat all the cancers. As I was saying, 70% of all cancers, all known human cancers, are going through the pathway of the PAK1, and 70% of and ivermectin practically inhibits PAK1. So it is a very potential for has very high potential for treating cancers. And I'm sure tonight you will be hearing also another one that I was saying there can be a marriage between ivermectin and lactoferrin, another very amazing product, but I have not much experience with it except for one patient, and maybe Manolo will speak about it or another one. And also the metabolic approach in treating cancer. So we know that the surgical approach, even the bio itself, can cause inflammatory oncotoxins. So in a way, there's limit to doing that. If the cancer is not really delineated properly and we do surgery, there is every possibility we are exposing the patient to spills of these cancers. And we know chemotherapy is really harming the all other cells, and as well as radiotherapy, the adjacent cells are also being harmed. And the immunotherapy is also not really that effective. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm against this. No, I'm just saying the reality. And so the metabolic approach now becoming popular, although it's still minority. Like for example, Dr. Thomas Seyfried. It may be the answer to cancers. And we have ivermectin, and we have other agents like lactoferrin to help us. With that, I'll just reserve for the question and answer later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Landrito. That was pretty short. Dr. Landrito has a lot of experience with ivermectin, and he can answer many, many questions. We've all learned from Dr. Landrito. Next on line with us is Larry. Larry is a member of one of the original members who started very actively treating COVID on his own, using a lot of Dr. Landrito's ivermectin. And since then, Larry and I have become very good friends. He joined us at IPK. This is another organization we did to treat COVID, and this is how we got into the lactoferrin business. He'll now take over. Larry, please, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, Dr. Chetty. Good evening, Dr. Landrito. And good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to our listeners. My name is Larry, and Another doctor was supposed to make the presentation on lactoferrin, but unfortunately the doctor suddenly became unavailable. So I was asked to make the presentation, and I started my presentation only this morning, started working on it. But with that, I'll do my best. Just a brief background on where this understanding of lactoferrin started. It actually started way back in, well, the road to lactoferrin started back in April 4, 2020, when I learned from Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity in YouTube about the Monash University in vitro experiment on ivermectin and on the SARS-CoV-2. The results was nothing short of amazing because within 48 hours, more than 99.9% of the SARS-CoV was neutralized, inactivated. So with that, I thought that the pandemic would end within 2 to 3 months because something was found that could completely, in effect, stop the pandemic. This was long before the vaccine was rolled out late that year. To my surprise, news about ivermectin was suppressed and censored, heavily censored. And then I came to know, initially, ivermectin was not available in the Philippines. So I had to get my initial stocks from the US through a friend. And then, fortunately, ivermectin became available in the Philippines through Dr. Lendrito, and I came to talk to Dr. Lendrito in January 2021. And our friendship has since blossomed and became stronger since then. Now, ivermectin is undoubtedly extremely and very, very effective against the SARS-CoV-2 that causes COVID-19. Whether it's used as a prophylaxis or as a treatment for COVID-19, it works wonderfully. One thing noticeable, though, is that as the virus mutated and changed and the different variants emerged, there were indications that higher and higher dosage of ivermectin was needed to treat the emerging variants. And one effect that had on me was that I was very concerned about that when I was listening to what Geert van den Bosch explained about the need to stop giving vaccine in the midst of the pandemic, and the concern he had about future variants, which would not only have achieve immune escape, but would also have, well, the virus could become more pathogenic, more virulent. So in addition to being extremely infectious and achieving immune escape, it would also become more virulent. So that was always at the back of my mind as I watched that the dose of ivermectin kept increasing with every succeeding variant, primarily because the viral load of every variant was also increasing exponentially many times over. So that kept me on the lookout for something that we could also add to the use of ivermectin in treating COVID-19, should that variant finally emerge. At the same time, although ivermectin was extremely effective as a prophylaxis and treatment against COVID-19 in the Philippines, I had this difficulty that people I know who were outside the Philippines had no access or had extreme difficulty in getting ivermectin. The few times that we were able to send ivermectin to them, those were wonderful moments, because we know that with every ivermectin shipment that we make, always sent us accompanied by baggage with somebody leaving for Europe or for the US or Canada. Those ivermectin could save health and lives. But the problem was always there was never enough where when it was needed in these places. So when I first heard about lactoferrin used together with diphenhydramine as possibly effective against COVID-19. That got my attention. One of the beauty about ivermectin is that it can be used during the viral phase of COVID-19, as well as in the immune dysregulation phase of COVID-19. And that I thought was nothing short of amazing, because where in effect, ivermectin was a perfect medicine that you could use as a prophylaxis before COVID-19, during the viral phase of COVID-19, and during the immune dysregulation phase of COVID-19. So unlike medicines like Paxlovid, which you could only use in the viral phase, and it's not even effective with that, as seen in the Paxlovid rebound cases that included no less than the president, Biden, and Fauci. They had the COVID rebound. There's no such problem with ivermectin. Okay. So when I first learned about lactoferrin used together with diphenhydramine as possibly very effective as a virostatic in stopping the replication of the virus, that got my attention, because maybe I said that would be a good way to help treat people who have no access to ivermectin. And so that's where it started from there. People who have no ivermectin who got COVID, they used lactoferrin combined with diphenhydramine, which is antihistamine. And those two combined were very, very effective as a virostatic in stopping and blocking the replication of the virus. What was also in my mind was that what if those two could be combined with ivermectin? And I thought, okay, what would be the effect if those two were combined, if those three were combined together? And I had my first chance of that when Omicron BA.5 came, because I had no reason to use those three with the BA.1 and BA.2. Those are very mild, but I was seeing a bit more severe cases with BA.5. So started using those, and as effective as ivermectin is, as effective as lactoferrin and diphenhydramine used together are, combining those three yielded amazing results. Even after just a passage of 24 hours, almost for 24, maximum of 48 hours, almost all of the major symptoms of COVID-19 were resolved. And by that, I mean oxygen sat having dropped. Yeah, there are actually people who got hypoxic with the Omicron BA.5. And then there were some who felt like their backs were so painful that it felt like their backs were breaking, that they thought they'll die. That's how painful it was, as they described. Same with a headache, but in 24 to 48 hours, gone. In fact, the treatment was so effective that for those who had some cost issues or who have done some difficulty in getting all three, I would stop giving the lactoferrin and diphenhydramine after the major symptoms resolved, and I just continue with ivermectin, which is more easily be available in the Philippines, and continue it for a total of 5 days just to minimize the risk of long COVID, developing long COVID. Now, how effective is lactoferrin and diphenhydramine as a treatment for COVID-19 without ivermectin? It's very effective also. Essentially, lactoferrin on its own is a virostatic. Diphenhydramine on its own, as Dr. Chetty would probably know, is also a virostatic. But if one was to put those two on a scale, diphenhydramine would be 1/3 effective and lactoferrin would be 1/3 effective. But when you combine those two, they have a synergistic effect that makes using both extremely effective, much more effective than just using one or the other. So that was the starting point of lactoferrin. Now, just like with ivermectin, I started researching more on lactoferrin, trying to understand how it achieves these benefits. And just like with lactoferrin, where I found out where most of the literatures I came across while researching this online were primarily on cancer, I saw many materials with lactoferrin and how it benefits being used for cancer. It's quite amazing. And just like ivermectin, where we have seen for ourselves various benefits from its use, unintended discoveries actually quite coincidental, because these were recounted to us through Dr. Landrito about the unintended beneficial effects from people who took this for reasons other than as a prophylaxis or who took higher dosage. We learn about the benefits of this. I saw that lactoferrin potentially is the same, and as I researched deeper into lactoferrin, I was amazed. And so that was the genesis. That was the beginning of how lactoferrin came into the picture. And my only concern, though, is that with Dr. Chetty listening and his story about the primates not milking cows, I'm not sure how receptive Dr. Chetty would be on lactoferrin. Just kidding, Dr. Chetty. Okay. Okay, so let me share with you some basic information on lactoferrin. There's so much information about lactoferrin that it's virtually impossible to cover Manolo, can you enable screen sharing for me? Okay. I just like to provide some materials. Otherwise, I can just read it if that's not possible. Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay. So as one can see from the screen that I'm sharing, lactoferrin has a pleiotropic effects on many aspects of health and life. So it's almost I think even a discussion of this for a day, possibly even a week, will not exhaust the topic. It's so exhaustive that I won't be able to do justice with it in the time that I have. So let me just give you a brief introduction, and it's an overview about lactoferrin, but hopefully enough to get your interest and to get you to look into this and to possibly use it in the treatment, not just of cancer, not just of COVID-19, but other diseases. Just as a side note, I think this pandemic has caused so much death and suffering. But I see a glimmer, a seed, as it were, that has sprouted as a result of this pandemic from our discovery of ivermectin, and in my part, also I think lactoferrin, because with what we learned from ivermectin and lactoferrin, we could theoretically, over the years, save as much, if not more, people who died from this pandemic. The cumulative effect of just learning more about different treatments and about disease, absent now, I mean, apart from what big pharma leads us to believe, basically the pandemic has opened our eyes to what's happened, and the manipulation and the censorship and the suppression, and open our eyes into a new pathway that would help us to perhaps achieve better health and better treatment of various diseases. Dr. Chetty was very formidable in establishing the philosophical foundation of the treatment, and that was beautifully done. And so I just would like to add to that by saying this pandemic has given us some opportunities, including our discovery of ivermectin and lactoferrin that we could probably use for many other diseases in addition to cancer and COVID-19. So with that, let me get started. Okay. Okay, lactoferrin was first discovered over 80 years ago. It was discovered initially in bovine milk or milk from the cow, and then later on from human milk. It's a glycoprotein. And its most interesting characteristics is that it binds to iron. That's why the term lactoferrin was used, because the initial discovery was that it comes from milk, and then it binds to iron. So lacto for milk, ferrin for iron. Now, lactoferrin is a glycoprotein that is very similar to transferrin. But unlike other transferrin, lactoferrin affinity for iron is several hundred times greater than transferrin, and that's amazing. And then one of the things about lactoferrin is that it's resistant to heating for several hours, not several minutes, several hours at 56 degrees centigrade, and it denatures only at around 80 to 90 degrees centigrade. Moreover, it's able to bind to the iron until even at very low pH level, so even at very acidic environs, and it's only when the acidity reaches 3, 2, and 1 that lactoferrin can yield the iron. Okay. So the highest concentration of lactoferrin is found in colostrum and breast milk. How much lactoferrin there is in the milk will depend upon the time of the lactation. But there's a lot more lactoferrin in colostrum than there would be in mature milk. And despite its name, lactoferrin can actually be found in other biological fluids. That includes saliva, tears, mucus, seminal fluid, bronchial secretions, and secondary granules of neutrophils. Now, our cells can actually produce lactoferrin. This is surprising because for somebody who probably just learned about lactoferrin today, because it's actually found in many parts of our organs. So kidney, lungs, gallbladder, pancreas, intestine, liver, prostate, saliva, tears, sperm, cerebrospinal fluid, urine, bronchial secretions, vaginal discharge, synovial fluid, umbilical cord blood, blood plasma, and cells of the immune system. So in addition to being found in milk, lactoferrin can be found in other cells, but at a very minute level. Now, this is very interesting to me. Lactoferrin is normally secreted at the epithelial lining mucosal surfaces and plays important role in innate immune mechanisms in humans. I think there's no doubt whatsoever that lactoferrin plays such a very essential part in our immune system, beginning with the neonates, the newly born infants, until just before death. Lactoferrin plays a very important role in the immune system, and that will become evident as I just go through this quickly. Now, okay, by chelating iron, lactoferrin removes a very important ingredient for many pathogens to grow, which is iron. And that's why lactoferrin, depending upon the bacteria, can either be a bactericidal or bacteriostatic. It actually is the same with some virus. It's also very good virucidal or a virustatic. And then in addition to that, lactoferrin also can affect the electrical charge of certain compounds. But in the case of the bacteria, for example, it can destabilize the microbial membrane and prevent microbial adherence to host cells. So it has very good antimicrobial actions. And then lactoferrin is also an immunomodulator, just like to some extent ivermectin in the viral in the immune dysregulation stage of COVID-19. In effect, it enhances neutrophil endothelial adhesion interactions and neutrophil aggregations, reactive oxygen intermediate production, and chemotaxis. It's there. Now, there's a wrong impression by some that lactoferrin is digested, and once it's digested, it's destroyed. And that view persisted for quite a while, but eventually experiments show that that it actually survives the digestion, and it is hydrolyzed to stable immunologically active peptides upon contact with the acidic environment of the gastric tube. So it continues to be effective after oral administrations. So taking ivermectin, taking lactoferrin orally it's a valid pathway when it's used for therapeutic effects. So it says here, lactoferrin can reach the intestine mainly in the form of peptide fragments where they act locally on the microbiota and the immune system associated with the local mucosa, thereby enhancing the immunity of all mucous membranes in the body. Now, this is so important because it has been said that most diseases start at the gut. And one of the major impacts of lactoferrin is actually in the gut, in the endothelial lining, and with that, the microbiome, and with that, the immune system, and with the immune system, we now could easily see a pathway to how it can benefit as a adjunctive treatment for cancer. Now, there are two types of lactoferrin that we're talking about. One is human, and one is bovine or sourced from cows. And then there is the 77% similarities between human lactoferrin and bovine lactoferrin. But because bovine lactoferrin is easier to obtain, it is what is usually studied. Now, as far as clinical effects on newborns and infants are concerned, there are indications that the clinical effects of lactoferrin, whether it be bovine or human, are the same for newborns and infants. Now, I have to say as early as now is that there's quite a huge difference in the effect of lactoferrin for neonates and infants below 6 months and those above 6 months. And for reasons still not well understood, when lactoferrin is given to a neonate or infant below 6 months, the lactoferrin actually releases the iron bound to it and donates that or gives that up for use by the body. Whereas for when they're older than 6 months, the lactoferrin actually holds onto the iron and doesn't let go. So that's a very interesting interplay, and that's an important distinction when reading studies on lactoferrin on neonates and infants and those that are used for adults. Okay. Both have been shown, both human lactoferrin and bovine lactoferrin have been shown to have anti-cancer effect for tumor prevention and treatment. So to a large extent and for most purposes, because human lactoferrin is very, very difficult to acquire and very, very expensive if it's available, bovine lactoferrin is used. Now, there are two types of lactoferrin. In addition to the different sources, there are two types of lactoferrin. One is apolactoferrin and one is hololactoferrin. Now, as shown in the screen, apolactoferrin is more easily available and more affordable. So when one buys lactoferrin from the store, it's usually apolactoferrin. Hololactoferrin is more difficult to access and far more expensive. Now, there are similarities to both apolactoferrin and hololactoferrin, but hololactoferrin has differences that makes it more effective as a treatment for some cancer. So, for example, for the purposes of inducing ferroptosis of triple negative breast cancer cells or TNBC cells, cholecalciferin is more effective. Okay, I think I'm taking too much time already. So let me. I'm just starting here, but let me go through it even faster. I'll be brief, Manolo. The quality of lactoferrin is of critical importance when it's used as a treatment. Not all lactoferrins are made equal. So some lactoferrin are better than the others. I have a lot more here that explains it, but I think we're running out of time. So Manolo, I'll stop here. If only for you to have more time to explain our cases and also for us to go to the Q&A. I'll reserve some of this if there's any question about this later on. Thank you, Manolo.
Thank you very much, Larry. I'm sorry to cut you short. We just have to run very quickly to discuss the different cases so that we'll have time for the other people. No?
Perfectly
Anyway,
understandable. Perfectly understandable. Thank you.
Let me just start. I don't know if you can start seeing the case evolutions. Okay. Before we start, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, very good. Before anything else, the first thing we talked about is the safety. First thing I want to talk about is the safety. When we started out, Dr. Landrito explained when we were first using the ivermectin, we've learned to start with. We actually did not know how to use ivermectin correctly, and we started like everybody else. We started with low doses and we went high. And one of the first cases that we were involved with was with a fellow who was almost 80 years old. He came very sick with COVID, and he was a pretty big fellow, and he came on the 9th day. He was very, very sick, and the doctors wanted to intubate him immediately, and the wife in the end had to say yes to the doctors intubating him. But what we did, I asked the wife to talk to the doctors to see if we could give him ivermectin through the NGT, and we did. And Dr. Landrito was involved at that time with this particular patient, and we ended up giving this man 1.8 mg per kilogram per day, and he was intubated for 16 days. So that was the first. We're talking approximately May of 2021, where our group was consulted for this particular case. And this man he was extubated, and he's alive today, and he's fine. Okay, so this was our first experience. Dr. Landrito earlier talked about the case of the doctor who had taken. She's a very small lady, and she took ivermectin because she was taking 120 milligrams. She weighs 50 kilos. So we're talking of, she was actually taking 2.4 milligram per kilogram per day, and she took that for 4 months. As Dr. Landrito explained, she had some overdosing. She had some symptoms of, overdosing on the ivermectin, but they were temporary. And this lady doctor continued taking the ivermectin. She reduced that from 2.4 milligrams per kilogram per day. She reduced that to 1.8 milligram per kilo per day, and she took that for another 4 months, and then she reduced that to 1.2 milligram per kilo per day. And as Dr. Landrito was explaining, she was constantly monitoring her liver function and her kidney function, and everything was normal. And as you all know, so far this is our first cure officially with ivermectin only, where in this case, this particular lady, her cancer was cured. Now, we started because of all of this understanding and all of these things that Larry was talking about. Larry is part of our group. Our discovery of lactoferrin came from listening to Dr. Chetty and then listening to another doctor in the US. And this is how we started using lactoferrin and diphenhydramine to treat people. We treated people in the Philippines and we treated people in Spain, and we got the same results. Fantastic. And as Larry was explaining earlier, we decided to see if we could bring this to another level. And so in August of this year, actually in July of this year, I tested ivermectin on myself. I have a fat prostate, and because I have a fat prostate, I said ivermectin has to work on me. So I started taking ivermectin, and immediately on the 8th day of taking ivermectin, instead of getting up in the middle of the night 5 times, I would only get up twice. I continued taking the ivermectin, and on the 18th day, on day 18, I no longer would get up in the middle of the night. So I said, this is fantastic. I continued taking the ivermectin, and after 37 days, I had still not gotten up at night. So I said, why don't we do something? Why don't we bring this to other people to test? And this is how we started a prostate community trial. This is the organization or the community that we set up in August of this year. Today, we have 2 communities. One is a prostate community trial on Viber, and then we have another version of the same thing, which we call Adios Cancer Adios. This is on Viber. So we have a Spanish version and we have an English version. Remember, a prostate community trial. So ever since then, we've now been we've been explaining to people how to treat enlarged prostates and cancers. And what we're doing, the idea behind our doing this is to be able to document the different cases. So we don't want people to self-medicate. What we want is for people to come to us so that we can prepare their medical histories and then study each case and go about each case. So one of our first cases, I will now start with one of our cases, was a fellow who came to us who was really, really sick. I will show you how sick he was. Can you see the pictures of this man? So he came to us with that, with this type of a growth in his neck. This man is indigent. So we said, let's give him ivermectin immediately. So we started him off on August 29. We started him off with 30 milligrams per day. That's a pretty small dose for this man. That comes out to about 0.54. We wanted to give it to him this way for him to get used to it. And approximately one week later, we were able to give him some lactoferrin. We gave him 750 milligrams daily. Next, we did a chest X-ray on September 10, and immediately we saw that he had what looked like metastasis in his lungs, okay, what is known as cannonball. No? And from then, we started giving him, on September 27, we gave him some NAC and some melatonin, and we continued testing him. We tested him on October 13, and generally his blood work was pretty good. His hemoglobin was a little low, but we were holding him. No? So the lactoferrin was helping him hold on to his iron. But when we saw that his hemoglobin was low, on October 18th, we increased the lactoferrin to 1,500 milligrams a day. And since we started on him from the ivermectin at 30 milligrams per day, we went up, we continued to bring up his ivermectin dosage as much as he could take. And we were now, in October 18, we brought him up to 2.18 milligram per kilo per day. On November 1, because what we do is we progressively give more ivermectin. As Dr. Landrito explained, what we try to do is we keep giving the person ivermectin because we don't know how much ivermectin the body needs, because we don't know to what extent the cancer is there. So we give ivermectin, we continue to bring the dosing of ivermectin up, provided the person does not show signs of overdosing. I'll explain this later on. And from that point on November 3rd, we did a repeat X-ray. So this X-ray, if you will allow me now to find, 1 second. I don't know now how to get back. 1 second. I will see if I can get the X-ray. I'm trying to make the screen smaller. I don't know how. 1 second, please. I'm sorry. I want to show you the X-ray that I have because it compares. 1 moment, please. Here. Okay. Can you see? Can you see the X-ray? Hello. Are you
Yes,
able
we
to hear
can.
me? Okay, thank you. All right. So we took an X-ray. We took an X-ray on September 10. That's on the left, and then we took another X-ray on November 3rd. Okay. This is almost 2 months apart. If you'll notice, the X-rays, while they look very similar, okay, there is a slight improvement. You will notice that the cannonball metastasis that is prevalent all over the left is still here. But if you notice, the X-rays will show you that there is a very small improvement. So if we're seeing an improvement on his X-rays, then we know that the ivermectin and the lactoferrin is doing something. Now, I would like to go back and show you this photograph. You will see here that his tumor, while still very big, has actually shrunk. So we're now talking of a smaller tumor. What we also know is that this man is now capable of walking 2 kilometers every day. When we got to him, he was just lying down with a lot of pain. Ever since we've given him the ivermectin and the lactoferrin, he no longer takes painkillers. Okay, if you will notice, he actually looks younger now than he did when we started. So we don't have a cure. We still don't have a cure, but we have a fellow who's been taking ivermectin since August 29, and he is now at 2.45 milligram per kilo per day. And he is still not showing signs of overdosing. And the last I heard was that yesterday he was singing and he was dancing. So we don't know yet if the lactoferrin and ivermectin are going to work in his case. In his case, what we're seeing here, what we're seeing here is that this tumor that he had came out exactly 1 week after getting himself vaccinated from the first shot. Just 1 week. He had the small tumor to begin with, and 1 week later, it started growing. So this is one particular case. The next case I want to describe is this one here. This is a case of 65-year-old male, 94 kilograms. He got himself vaccinated in June. He got another vaccination in August. He had his first booster in January 22, and he was diagnosed with rectal cancer. Okay, he was taking these medicines, and this gentleman, let me just run his history here. He was diagnosed in June 2022 with rectal cancer. He had a PET scan in contrast. He took 25 sessions of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, including 5 IV sessions. This was from July to September. On October 7, he had himself an MRI, and there was no significant change after the 25 sessions of chemotherapy and radiotherapy. So we started him on October 15. This man is in Malaysia, so we were not able to give him Dr. Landrito's ivermectin. We started him off at 36 milligrams per day, which is it's a small dose. That's 0.38 milligram per kilo per day. And we started him, and we immediately, as soon as we could, we went up increasing his ivermectin dosage. He started this lactoferrin on October 28. We started him off with 750 milligrams. And we had already, of course, as we said, we progressively increased the ivermectin dosage. And on November 3rd, we brought him up again, his ivermectin. We keep bringing up the ivermectin until, we see people start getting side effects, hallucinating, etc. And what we do is we adjust the dose. Anyway, on November 13th, we had him stop because he was having symptoms similar to getting a stroke. But the next day, we had him do a PET scan, and the PET scan reveals that the carcinoma, the rectal carcinoma that he had significantly reduced in size, and there was no metabolic activity, nor was there any metastasis. So since then, because of this good effect, we have since then reduced this ivermectin intake to 0.73 milligrams, because after this, we still noticed that he was still experiencing some blurred vision. So we reduced him now to 0.73 milligrams, and we're watching him. He's still at 0.73, and we will schedule a PET scan shortly thereafter, and from here we will check to see how he's doing. To give you an idea also of another case, this is another case of cancer case, what we believe is a cancer case. This man is 70 years old, 62 kilograms. His first shot was in June 2021, second shot August 30-31, first booster January 6, Pfizer. And what happened to him? Very interesting. On April 2018, okay, his prostate was roughly 59 cc's. So he had an enlarged prostate already done. As you can see, the values of the prostate vary because, as you know, this is done by an ultrasound, so it's not very precise. But his PSA in July 2019 was 2518. On December 20, 2019, 2635. When people have this kind of PSAs, normally these are cancers. But of course, until we have a biopsy, we cannot confirm that. But somebody with this kind of a PSA, doctors would tell you that that's most likely cancer. Anyway, so he had his first dose in June and the second one in August. Immediately, his PSA shoots up from 25 to 51 after those first two doses. He takes himself a booster on January 6, and that PSA shoots up to 61.75. By this time, he starts complaining that he's feeling really, really bad. Okay, and we start him off on ivermectin on August 23rd with just 30 milligrams a day. So we repeat his PSA test just a week after he started on the ivermectin, and he had the PSA of 89.11. Anyway, so what's happened with this fellow? So we immediately brought up the ivermectin, and we started him on lactoferrin 750 milligrams per day. On November 3rd, we brought him up. I'm sorry, I'm talking of somebody else. We brought him up to we started him on ivermectin 30 milligrams per day. He immediately stopped urinating. About 2 weeks later, he stopped getting up in the middle of the night, and we went up increasing the ivermectin. We brought him up to 45 milligrams per day, and we started him at 750 milligrams per day. Anyway, so on October 5, this is when he goes to see his urologist. He goes to see his urologist, and the results are spectacular. What do we see? From the 89.11 that he had in his PSA on August 30, it was reduced to 10.94 only. So it's this 10.94 is actually less than 1/2 of his PSA in 2019. Of course, his doctor did not know we were giving him lactoferrin and ivermectin, but this is an indicator of how effective lactoferrin and ivermectin are together. Now, before we now have looked at two cases, one rectal cancer, one prostate cancer, which are showing very good effects. We still don't know if we have a cure, but we're seeing that it's really, really effective. So this is the combination of ivermectin and lactoferrin. Now, I will now take you to a different case where we did not use ivermectin and lactoferrin. This is one case where we used only lactoferrin. I will explain the case. Bernice is 42 years old. She weighs at the time of her getting sick, she was weighing about 48 kilos. Okay, and she has lost weight, and she took her first vax in November 2021, a second vax on November at the end of November 2021, and in August, so we're talking of approximately 8 months after, she got herself a biopsy and she had ovarian cancer that had already metastasized. Okay, so we're talking of a turbo cancer. Okay, this girl, 42 years old, was perfect, no problem at all. Then all of a sudden, she starts feeling pain. She goes to the doctor and she's really sick. Now, what happens to her? She comes to us and we tell her, well, we have the options of, coming with our treatment, or we can take a look at what the doctor is giving you and we can study that and we can decide whether we can give you ivermectin. So we looked at her chemotherapy drugs, and the chemotherapy drugs that she was taking were like a civil war for us, because some of them are contraindicated against each other. So we said, if we come in and something were to happen to her, they may blame us for giving you the ivermectin. So we decided not to come in with the ivermectin and to just give her lactoferrin. Anyway, to give you an idea, when we started her off, her cancer marker were, sky high. Of course, we're talking of a lady with metastasis, ovarian cancer, and her, her cancer marker was, really, really high. She had 410, and she had low hemoglobin. Hematocrit was low, still within normal range, but on the low side. Same with the red blood cells. So she started her chemotherapy on September 8th, and we from then on started controlling, her blood work. No? Now we started giving her lactoferrin immediately after she started her chemotherapy. Okay, we started her off with 750 milligrams of lactoferrin with her chemotherapy. So we kept watching her blood work to see what was happening, and we've seen that ever since we started her off, her cancer marker went down. Her hemoglobin slightly went up. Her hematocrit still was going down in September. Okay, so we continued. I'm sorry. At this point, September, we had still not started her off with ivermectin. We started her on the ivermectin on October 1st. I'm sorry, with the lactoferrin. Okay, and from there, we've been continuously monitoring her blood work. Her cancer marker became normal just about 18 days after we started giving her the lactoferrin. Her hemoglobin was still low, but it had improved, and her hematocrit was still low. Her red blood cells were just on the verge of normalcy. So she continued with this. We continued with the lactoferrin, and on November 7, her cancer marker was now normal. Okay, her red blood cells were normal, her white blood cells were normal. And what's happened to her is she has already begun to put on weight. So this is a case where we're seeing that the lactoferrin and the chemo drugs are working together. So this is one case now that we have presented where we're seeing that the chemotherapy and the lactoferrin works. So we're saying, could it be that the lactoferrin and the ivermectin work well, but also the chemotherapy and the lactoferrin work well? Well, we've been reading quite a bit, and we found a study that was done on lactoferrin, and lactoferrin was administered on some gram-negative E. coli. Okay, and this gram-negative E. coli was used with another drug. Let me see if I remember the name. I have the name of the drug, but I lost the page just coming in. 1 second, please. Let me see if I can recover it. Anyway, the study here, this study is by Dr. Aguilera. I wanted to take a look at it. You can write me afterwards. This study by Dr. Aguilera shows that by combining lactoferrin with a medicine that is not, he started off with I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. He started off with a medicine that was not sensitive to a particular gram-negative organism, E. coli. Okay, and what they did was they subjected the organism to lactoferrin, and they discovered that when they did that, the lactoferrin broke down the outer membrane of the pathogen and allowed the previously ineffective antibiotic to become effective. So I discussed this with the author of the study, and he explained that this is what's probably happening. What's probably happening is that the lactoferrin combined with the chemotherapy is potentiating the effect of the chemotherapy, just as we're seeing with the cases of lactoferrin and ivermectin, where the ivermectin, which it's good by itself, it's effective by itself against the cancer. The lactoferrin by itself is good against the cancer, but combining the two is giving us now the capacity to potentiate the effect of the ivermectin. So I'll go through some other cases, but I just wanted to explain this particular case. So we're talking of the case of the ovarian cancer, which is using chemotherapy plus lactoferrin, and we've showed you 2 cases of the lactoferrin plus ivermectin where it has been effective. Let me see if I can go through a few other cases. Okay. Okay. Can you see this case? This is YBC. She's 76 years old, 47 kilograms. She's had 3 shots. April 2021, July 2021. She got her booster shot thereafter. She has breast cancer. Okay. She started in 2019 already. She already had problems with her left breast. And immediately after getting herself vaccinated, her breast growth became harder, bigger, and her breast started to bleed. So we started her with ivermectin, okay, and we noticed that at 15 milligrams she had no adverse effects. So we immediately brought her up to 30. We brought her up to 45, and she started feeling much better. And we then started her off. Then we started giving her. We brought her up to 60. We started giving her lactoferrin a few days afterwards, and she started to feel some overdosing. So we had to adjust her intake of ivermectin. But the good thing is this lady, after approximately 1 month, has already improved tremendously. So we're seeing in just over a month, we're seeing that her nipple has stopped bleeding, her tumor has decreased in size. We're still giving her the ivermectin and the lactoferrin. Now, another case that we have, which is quite remarkable, okay, this is an early cancer case. The reason we're showing this one is because the effects were really quick. Okay, so this lady, 75 years old, 56 kilograms. She had what looked like stage 1 cancer in the right lung. Okay, so she was operated on, and it was done, etc. Now, this was we're talking of January 2015. She decided to get herself vaccinated December 21 and January 2022. So in July, just 5 months or 6 months after the right after the vaccine, she gets herself a CT scan, and it looks like there's something growing in her scan in her lung. No? So she immediately started taking Dr. Landrito's ivermectin for just 15 milligrams a day, and she got her they repeated the test in August, and there was a new lesion that looked bad. So she increased her dosing of ivermectin, and just with the ivermectin, they repeated the scan, and what was there just a few months ago cleared out. The lady daughter is a nurse, so she ran out of Dr. Landrito's ivermectin, so she was giving her she had to give her some Indian ivermectin, which is also ivermectin, and it's good, and she added lactoferrin. So they repeated the scan results and brought them to the hospital, brought them to the oncologist, and the results were so impressive that the doctor said, "We'll see you in 1 year. Looks like everything is good." So we have many other cases. Maybe I have time for another one. One second, please. I just want to. Right, please bear with me. Okay. In the meantime, is Dr. Beroya with us, among us? Dr. Beroya? Dr. Beroya? Fantastic. Dr. Beroya, can you unmute, please?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you speak a little louder, please? Okay, Dr.
Okay.
Beroya
Yes,
is one of our cancer patients. He
yes.
is also a doctor, and he's here with us today to tell us about his case. Please go ahead, Dr. Beroya, all yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Roberto Beroya. I'm 52 years old. I was diagnosed as having an adenoid cystic carcinoma of the right lacrimal gland. So it's here. It's behind my right eye. So I still have my, if you can see, my right eye is closed because during my second operation, the cranial nerve 3 was damaged, so I cannot open my right eye, but my eyeball is still there. But it's frozen, so it's frozen meaning because the right lateral rectus muscle was also damaged. So basically my right eye is not functioning anymore. So I'm only using my left eye. Okay. I was diagnosed February 2018. I had chemotherapy, 6 sessions of chemotherapy. I already had 3 operations. 2 of them were to remove the mass. I only had 1 mass before, and I already had 4 rounds of radiation therapy. Okay. The problem with my case is it's recurrent. So it's on and off. It to make long story short, chemotherapy is out of the question anymore. So it's not working because when we did the chemotherapy, right after chemotherapy, we repeat the CT scan, the mass was back. Okay. So what's effective right now with me is radiation therapy, but it can only control the growth, but not the new growth. Get it? I can still get before I only have 1 mass, but now I have multiple mass in my head, different parts of my head. Okay. I was introduced to ivermectin only last November, by a friend of mine. A friend of mine was a doctor also, and he introduced me to Mr. Gonzalez. And then at first, as usual, I was hesitant, and then since I'm in between treatment right now, so I decided to go for it. Okay. At first, I'm not expecting anything. So they gave me the medicine. I have my ivermectin, I have my lactoferrin. Right now, I'm on my 24th day of ivermectin and lactoferrin. And as I was talking to Sir Manolo Gonzalez yesterday. I was telling him that I feel so much better now. I feel so much better now. Before before IBM, before IBM and lactoferrin, I was in pain. Basically, I was in pain for the last more than 5 years. I was in pain for 24/7. Constant of 7. It will only go away right after radiation therapy. After radiation therapy, it will calm down for maybe for a month, and then after that it will come back again. And then right now, my last radiation was May this year. Okay, and then after that radiation, I was in pain again. Since I started by IBM and lactoferrin, I can honestly say that my pain is I'm in control now. The pain is in control. I have pain, but I don't know how to explain it, but it's a pain in a good way. Okay? So my pain is before it was a constant 7 that always peaks into 10, which is most of the time it's always 10. So maybe 7 for a few hours and then peak of 10. But right now, I haven't experienced 10 for the last 2 weeks. My most pain is, I would say, 7. I can sleep better. I can sleep better now. I haven't slept better for since the last 5 years. I'm not kidding. I can
Dr. Beraya, so this is the first time in 5 years that you're able to get sound sleep, correct, doctor?
Exactly. I was telling Manolo that because he was calling me, and then I was telling him that if I don't answer, it only means one thing: I am sleeping. I can honestly say my body is recovering now. Um, um, and I think I can honestly say that it's because other than
Tell us
ivermectin and
about
lactoferrin, I don't have any
Doctor,
medications.
Doctor, tell us about the size of the mass on your forehead.
Okay.
Just
Okay. Before I only have the masses behind my right eye, but I have multiple metastases now here in this area, here, and then okay. Right now, this one you can hardly see it now, but before, like let's just look at me, you can see this mass, but I don't know if you can see it now. This mass. I have a big one here.
so you can tell us that in approximately 24 days, the
Yeah,
mass
yeah,
the
it
mass
decreased
on
in
your
size.
head, on your forehead has shrunk. You're seeing it yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
That's metastasis. We know that's metastasis.
yes. That's a no, that's a proven. That's a no, it was recorded in my MRI and my PET scan. I have a metastasis here, and also I have a metastasis in my maxillary sinus. So before taking the ivermectin and lactoferrin, I have congestion, and this is so pain. I don't know if you know what kind of pain. If you have sinusitis, I had that, but right now I can. I don't have any congestion here. I don't have pain here. My pain now is almost none. I can say that.
So with an overall pain level of practically 10,
Yes.
10 out of 10, you are now between 4 and 7. That would be your pain level today. 4 over 10.
Yes. Yes. That I can say.
Plus you're
My
sleeping. Plus
maximum.
you're sleeping well.
I'm
Plus you're
sleeping
sleeping well.
I'm eating well.
And the lumps on your head, the two tumors on your head that are visible have shrunk in
Yes.
24 days.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I gained weight.
Wow.
I
So
gained weight.
plus you've also put on weight.
Yeah, I put on weight. I haven't my most weight. I haven't weigh more than 120 pounds for the last more than 5 years. But now I am 123.
Okay,
So
you
my
put on
before my weight is always between 105 and 115. That's always 105 to 115.
so doctor, when are you expecting to get a repeat MRI so that we're able to see what is inside? When
In
are
2
you
months
going to tell
time, in
us?
2 months time, in 2 months time, I can document by that time how I mean, we can at least with the MRI and with the PET scan, we can document how much size it shrunk. I mean, it will
We can
definitely
see
show.
we can see the
We
actual
can see it.
reduction. We can
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
see the effectiveness of this. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
from the looks of it, doctor, the chemotherapy has not worked on you. The
It didn't
radiation
work.
therapy,
It didn't
the
work.
radiation therapy has not worked on you. And all of a sudden,
The radiation therapy can control, but not it can, what do you call this, it stop the growth then for a while, and then it will grow again.
okay.
But right now
so
I can say that I'm on I'm been diagnosed for almost 5 years now, and I feel so much better now.
So this is the first time in 5 years that you have hope. You have hope
Yes.
to finally get cured.
Yes.
And with God's help,
You got the right word.
and all our prayers,
Yes.
we
Yes.
we might have another cure.
Yes, you got the right word. You got the right word.
All right. So we continue praying for Dr. Roberto Beroya,
Thank you.
who's another brother of ours.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So what we're here for really is we're telling everybody, all the doctors out there who have listened to this testimony and listened to some of our cases, we have many, many cases and we have many sick people. And all we want you to do is we want you to come and join us at a prostate community trial. That's for an English group. And what we want is we want you people to take charge of those people that are sick, who come to you and tell you, can you help me, doctor? Can you give me lactoferrin, and can you give me ivermectin, and can you give me other things that might help me? For the first time, we are seeing ivermectin has worked. In the case of Dr. Landrito's experience, we have this one cure that's taken 1 year, but now we're seeing the effect of the lactoferrin and the ivermectin, where it's working very quickly. We don't yet know if we're going to beat the cancers, but it's the only weapon we have at the moment. The only weapon we have at the moment against these turbo cancers that we're going to have so many of. I forgot to ask you, Dr. Beroya, are you vaccinated?
Yes.
You are vaccinated.
Yes.
So how many shots have you taken?
4.
4 shots.
4.
So,
Yeah.
so here is a case. Here is a case that may have been worsened. That may have been worsened by the 4 shots. We don't know what the effects of the vaccines have been on Dr. Beroya, but we now know that the lactoferrin and the ivermectin are working with him. We don't yet know if we're going to heal him and if God's going to allow us that miracle, but we are seeing a man full of hope. So all doctors out there, please learn from this experience. Please come and join us. Please tell us how we can help you. We will tell you what to dose. I would like to explain the dosing that we follow, because we did not talk too much about it. What we try to do is we try to upward titrate. We don't know how much cancer somebody has, so we don't know how much ivermectin to give. So what we do is we give a little bit of ivermectin and we watch, and we keep increasing the dose, and we keep looking to see if there are symptoms, if there are overdosing symptoms. What we try to do is we try to spread the number of takes a day. If we can take 4 takes a day, 4 takes of ivermectin, we spread it out. So as soon as the person gets up in the morning, the person should take ivermectin, always with a meal. And then at the last meal at night is when the ivermectin is taken. And then 2 more takes in between those 2 extremes. So, and the idea is to take a small amount of ivermectin on each take and gradually increase it. This way, when people start to overdose, the overdosing symptoms are very short. So in the case of Dr. Beroya, have you noticed any overdosing symptoms other than being sleepy?
Blurring of vision only.
All right. So the blurring of vision is normal. That's
Yeah.
fine. What we don't want is for somebody to take ivermectin and after 1 hour get blurred vision for 2 hours or 3 hours. In that case, we have to cut back on the ivermectin. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the rule of thumb, our rule of thumb is the more the degree of cancer, if the cancer is bad, then we need more ivermectin. If the cancer is not so bad, then we don't need as much ivermectin. But we have to watch it. We have to watch each patient. So the doctors out there who are listening to us have to be careful of this, have to be watching, monitoring patients. You people are the best qualified. There are questions here on safety. Okay, we have seen many cases of cancer, and we're giving them very high doses. I explained to you the man with the tumor, we're giving him a dose of 2.45 milligram per kilo per day, but he's not showing any side effect at all. So we may have to give him even more ivermectin. We are considering this. So these are things that you do not have to be afraid, because after all, you got your blood work, so you can test your kidney function and you can test your liver functions. And so far, we have not seen anybody with any problems at all. I will explain to you, for everybody listening to us, so that you can come and join our community. All you need to do is download Viber. Viber is like WhatsApp. All you have to do is download it on your telephone, and then you can later download it on your computer. and then look for a prostate community trial. I'll repeat, a prostate community trial. Put in Viber. I'll write down in the chat now my email address so that you can write me, and you can write me for whenever you want to join us. Let's open now the forum for question and answer. Please, everybody, if you have any questions, please do so. Thank you very much, Dr. Beroya.
Thank you, Sir Manolo.
Go ahead, please. We have some questions. Please go ahead. Gil, would you kindly allow people to join in and raise their questions?
Is it an open question and answer?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Can you put the camera on back, Gil, so that we can see the?
Very good evening to everyone, and thank you very much for organizing this session. I think it has been a very exciting and informative session. And clearly, sorry, just let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Vijay. I'm a gynae oncologist with interest in integrative medicine. I practice integrative medicine for the last 10 years. So some of the things that you have shared are of real interest to me. I just would like to know a couple of things and maybe give my, my 2 cents worth of opinion, because I've been looking at healing cancers beyond conventional approaches for the last 10, 11 years. Firstly, I think your experience with high-dose ivermectin in combination with lactoferrin, it seems like a very interesting option for some patients. Although the numbers of cases are still probably limited for us to form meaningful conclusions, but I think the signals are very, very exciting, and I'm quite sure there are many patients that can benefit from this. What I would like to add to this conversation is that now my excitement level of seeing how cancers can be healed almost 10, 11 years ago without the need for chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or even surgery, I sense the same palpable excitement and passion in many of you who are seeing these results, although from a different route, COVID-induced route that brought ivermectin into our consciousness, and how high-dose ivermectin can be usefully applied. My experience over the last 10 years, and I echo what Dr. Lendrito has mentioned earlier, is that there is a very powerful role for metabolic approaches, and there are already many effective alternative cancer treatments which are available, and I think you mentioned cases like the ovarian cancer and so forth. I can share with you that, because as a gynae oncologist, those are some of my core patient groups that in up to 55 to 60% of advanced, recurrent, and even palliative ovarian cancers, we are able to reverse their cancers back into remission. In early cancers, the results are, comparable, if not better than what conventional treatment is able to. So there are many things, I think someone in the has posted in the chat group, what about high-dose intravenous vitamin C? Yes, that is a a very, very useful modality, intravenous vitamin B17, hypothermia, hyperbaric oxygen-based therapies, oxidative therapies. And so there are already many proven therapies which are available, but this ivermectin lactoferrin is very exciting to me because this is a low-cost option, because some of these therapies that we are currently doing using these other things that I mentioned, the entry cost both to the practitioner and to the patient is much higher. And I think if we can develop low-cost options that is made available to the masses, I think this will be a very good development. So I'm very excited. Definitely, I would be putting some of my patients, because there are patients that do not respond to metabolic therapies and everything that I have mentioned just now. And so this offers another option. So thank you all very much for sharing this knowledge that you all have come about, and we wish you success, and we would look forward to collaboration with those of you who are working in this field. Thank you.
Dr. Vijandre, please, I sent you a little message. We'd like to hear more about your techniques. We'd love you to come on board with us, because we have to share. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the more doctors we have with us on board, the better. What we're trying to do is we're trying to collect information, and we're trying to say, for example, in the Philippines, for example, we have 50 breast cancer cases that we've treated. We want to collect that data. We want to collect that data and group it together, and we want to collect that data and add them to the 70 cases that we have in Italy, and to the 30 cases we have of breast cancer in Spain, and to the 175 cases in Brazil. And when we add everything together, we might have 2,500 breast cancer cases that we have treated with ivermectin and lactoferrin, and whatever other treatment we might find, among them what you're using. And when what we next want to do is collect now the breast cancer cases, the prostate cancer cases, the lung cancer cases, the brain cancer cases, etc., etc. And before we know it, we want to publish this and say what you just said: we can cure cancer with cheap, everyday medicine. And we might have a cohort of 25,000 cases only in lung cancer, and we might have a total cohort of 50,000 cases of prostate cancer. Remember, prostate problems, all men have prostate problems, so we can get 50,000 cases easy. So please come and join us. I just sent you a private message so that you can kindly we can get in touch, because we need to expand this. We need to find more doctors to join us so that we can collect data. This is the purpose of our getting together. We are so excited, doctor, because we believe that together, like Dr. Chetty said, he said that perhaps the reason we have come together is because we have to unite. And maybe COVID has allowed this. COVID perhaps has been allowed by God for us to unite together to beat this. And it's not just medicine, it's also diet, like Dr. Chetty was explaining about the nature, and all of the other things, all of the other techniques, and we are here to help each other like brothers. So, and remember, I just wanted to add another thing. Remember, for the people listening to us, do not take anything without consulting with a doctor. This has to be supervised by a doctor who knows what he's doing. So if you have an enlarged prostate and you've heard this talk, don't take ivermectin without consulting first with a doctor, because it's not good. That's not the idea. Is to check with the doctor. And the reason we want you to check with the doctor is so that the doctor can tell us, listen, we're doing this with this particular fellow, and these are the results. Now, the other thing I wanted to say was that we are using ivermectin on many people that we are monitoring. And normally, ivermectin is super effective on enlarged prostates. But enlarged prostates, I have to tell you, are not only due to cancers or to tumors. You can have an enlarged prostate because of many other things, among them prostatitis. So sometimes or somebody might have calcification. So sometimes you may be taking you may be taking ivermectin, and it may not work. If you're still around and you're not too tired, I just want to. I have another case that I want to discuss with you. I don't have the slides, but this is one case which I think is worthwhile for you to listen to. His name is Tony. Tony is about 61 years old. He has had a very big prostate for the longest time. He has had the big prostate, 145 cc prostate, from as far back as 2018. Okay, this year, his wife called me when he was at the hospital. He was at the hospital because he collapsed, and they brought him to the hospital. And immediately when he got to the hospital, they had to transfuse him because his blood work was terrible. Okay, low hemoglobin, no red blood cells, very sick. So they had to transfuse him, and he was very sick. So the lady called me up and said, "Look, my husband is very sick," and I says, "I'm sorry, I cannot do anything but our team cannot do anything. Our team cannot help anyone, unless you go home." So she called me back after 5 days, and she came back, and she says, "We're home." And he says, "What's your problem?" "Well, my husband is very weak. They wanted him at the hospital to undergo dialysis." She says, "What is he urinating?" And she says, "He is urinating 0.7 liter, 700 ml a day, 24 hours." Okay. So we start asking information so that we're able to get a profile of the person, and we discovered that his PSA is also high. He has a PSA of, it's been pretty high. So we put 2 and 2 together, and we see that his problem probably is a cancer, and immediately we start him off on ivermectin and lactoferrin, and we tell him to walk. Okay, so we change his diet a little bit, and after 2 weeks, he's able to walk about an hour every day. He's starting to put on weight, and he feels a lot more energy. But he is now improving. The amount that he is urinating improves. So from 0.7 after 2 weeks, he was now urinating between 1 liter to 1.4 liter, and we kept checking how much water he was drinking also to compare. We were checking water intake, urination, and what was his weight gain, all of that. Anyway, after 2 months, we repeated his PSA, which has remained stable, but his prostate has shrunk by 1/3. It's now 107 cc's. So from 145, it's now down to 107. But he's still very sick, so we still continue giving him the ivermectin and the lactoferrin. I just wanted to tell you this as for cases of enlarged prostate. So thank you very much, everybody. If we have any more questions from the floor, we'll take them.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please.
My name is Falco. I'm from Germany. I'm just an early layman and trying to figure out what's going on in the cell, because I started to be fascinating by cell biology 2 years ago, and read really deep into this topic. And I think I've linked a study a bit up ago. I can link it again, where you can find the gene, the complete, or maybe not the complete, but a lot of gene expression. They observed after the 3rd booster shot on 5 patients, BNT162b2. And what I noticed is it seems that they messed with almost every pathway leading to the SOS signaling of cells. So cell can not longer go down into apoptosis. For example, they screwed the Jack stat rocket high to the sky. They screwed with the complete MAP kinase in triggering KRAS up. They screwed with cell cycle depending kinase 4 and 6, and triggered also the E2F81 0.5-fold high to the sky. And I think this is one of the most plausible mechanisms you see when you notice that the cancer is growing after the shot. Just wanted to say, and I find it fascinating with ivermectin, and thank you so much for Dr. Alan Landrito for his presentation, because it seems the ivermectin has a very positive effect on the mTOR, and with that, I think you can really deal great with the problems you see after the shot. And I wanted to thank you all of you bright minds doing this and enlightening also us laymen with your work. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, let me answer. Sir, those pathways you mentioned were all, I've gone through certain readings, and all those that you mentioned are also addressed by ivermectin. It's really fascinating that ivermectin address AKT, mTOR pathways, WNT-TCF pathways, PAK1, of course, and many others. There really is so many pathways by which ivermectin is acting against. And these are pathways genetic. Some of them are signal transducer proteins, some are enzymes, kinases. Ivermectin is acting against them. So really, we are just scratching the surface of what ivermectin can do for cancer, I think. And it's I'm glad you're bringing those things up. Thank you for the comments.
Okay, Manolo, thank you, Dr. Landrito. We have two people who raised their hands. First, I see Mahim.
Mahim, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm an immunologist with over 40 years of experience, hands-on experience, and later analysis of data related to inflammation, and our own earlier original data became accidental discovery when we repeatedly, for a long time, induced tumorigenesis and angiogenesis in the guinea pigs. I came from the University of Pennsylvania that we did this accidental discovery. I didn't know how important our finding was as far as tumorigenesis and angiogenesis of the lymphoid tissue, until I came to National Cancer Institute, the National Institute of Health. Then I proposed the role of inflammation, important role of inflammation in cancer research and therapy. However, I met with tremendous challenges legally, scientifically, professionally, personally. But then after I submitted a lot of large-scale proposal, now the whole universe is working on little pieces of the ideas on the role of inflammation in carcinogenesis and angiogenesis. The reason I'm mentioning this is that our health system, the medical establishment, is not very much interested in solving the cancer mystery, because there is a big, huge profit. And this cancer, in one of my recent articles in 2018, I mentioned that cancer is an induced disease of 20th century. We lose the biorhythm of the normal immune surveillance. which is, we defined as yin and yang of acute inflammation or effective immunity. And in my way of thinking, reading and analyzing a lot of data, I believe that we are conversing the role of constituent receptor to adaptive receptor, and the wound healing take over the apoptosis pathways. And you mentioned the role of many pathways, but I want to come to some kind of conclusion, is that we have to pay attention into the important role of effective immunity. In the medical system, we have almost not only ignored the role of immune system, but we also destroy the immunity ever since a newborn is arrived, by injecting the newborn or infant with pathogen-specific vaccines, which has a lot of not only component of these pathogens, but also a lot of component which prevents mitochondrial function, which prevents those protein, lactoferrin, and so forth, and dysfunctional mitochondria, and the role that it should have as oxidative phosphorylation is impaired. And the sooner or later, the development of diseases occur in young and old, and we have to do something about this dilemma. We didn't create the COVID vaccine just yesterday. This was induced, cancer was induced since 1955, when we injected the public with virus-contaminated polio vaccine, and we induced cancer in the last 3-4 generations. And we have to pay attention to the overall of what we should do to solve this. Cancer is not as complicated as you all mentioned also in this wonderful seminar. It's not as complicated as they make it to be. They claim that cancer is a 100 disease, and then they said it's 200 disease. And recently, the last, before this, NCI director says it's 1,000 disease. And I mentioned that cancer is only one disease, and is dysfunction of immune system, which the wound healing take over the apoptosis pathways. I could go on, but I appreciate the opportunity and this wonderful seminar.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Kindly tell us your email address so that we can be in touch. We'd love to communicate with you. Anybody else? Any other questions from the floor? Please, Larry, go ahead, please.
Yes, picking up on what Dr. Katami said, and particularly also with what Dr. Chetty mentioned, summarized so well. I'd like to ask a question I'd like to direct a question to Dr. Chetty, please. Dr. Chetty, could you give us could you share with us your perspective on the role of the microbiome and its connection with the immune system with regard to cancer, treating cancer?
Yeah, I think the gut microbiome is a vital part of overall health. After all, 8 to 9/10 of our constitution is not self. It's made up by the microbiology that lives on us. So I think human beings can be considered one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. And so we tend to neglect looking at this biodiversity that exists as a human body and trying to keep all of it healthy, not just ourselves. Now, we've seen with COVID the affectation to the gut microbiome and what devastating effects that can have on the human body. We've proven that COVID has bacteriophage activity and can infect the gut microbiome, produce toxins. And so it has become an integral part in the understanding of how to treat COVID itself. However, with the gut microbiome, the bacteria in your gut are vitally important in digesting some of the nutrient and making it available for absorption. They are also important in the production of certain chemicals that we do not produce, and we're dependent on this microbiome to actually produce. So the gut itself as well is almost the seat of your immunity. It has the greatest exposure to external environment and needs to build tolerance so that we can nourish ourselves without any allergy. The immunity as such from birth is something that's constantly adapting and learning what to tolerate so that we can live in our unique environments and thrive and reproduce in them. So children that are exposed from a young age to the diversity of their environment seem to develop much better tolerance to their environment, and those that are restricted seem to have far more allergic problems. Same with the gut. Soil-based bacteria are now, since COVID's damage to the gut microbiome, proving to have some benefits, spore probiotics, in the gut itself, healing the gut lining, increasing the mucous membrane barrier, and in doing so seems to have a profound effect on immunity and those with autoimmune conditions and that kind of thing. So I think the gut microbiome is an integral part of the human body. And as to cancers itself, they have the ability to actually produce toxins and to cause cancers. They also have the ability to improve general health and nutrition, and in that way actually help cure cancers. So I think there's a balance we need to find, a vitally important balance that we need to find. And to understand how different bacteria influence the human body in different ways. I think part of it is our nutrition, exposure to dairy, wheat-based products, carbohydrates will change our gut microbiome. And that might be a central cause for a lot of the disease we see in the modern world.
Thank you, Dr. Chetty. I just thought I'd mention that one of the primary ways by which I think lactoferrin benefits in the treatment of cancer and other diseases is primarily its beneficial impact on the microbiome, and with that, the immune system, and with that, cancer. Thank you, Dr. Chetty.
Thank you.
Christina Parks, go ahead, please. Dr. Parks.
Yes, thank you. Great seminar. Love the information on lactoferrin. My basic question is for you. I think Manuel, do you see any efficacy against non-vaccine induced cancers? Now, I know you can't know if these cancers were induced by the vaccine, but do you have any data on people who did not take the vaccine who've taken cancers? And I just want to follow this up because we know that the signaling, the inflammation, the chronic presence of the spike protein high VEGF that might be driving angiogenesis, all of these may be induced by the vaccine. And so is the ivermectin reducing those causalities, or is it activating the T cells as per the paper that was just published, or is it working through some other mechanism for the cancer?
Like you very well pointed out, we've got lots of people. Some of them are vaxxed, some of them are not vaxxed. But so far, we're seeing results. We're seeing results, good results on both groups. Now, I can't tell you if we're having the same kind of results. It's still too early to say. So what we need to do is get more data, get more people documented. So that's what we're doing here.
Okay, I have one additional follow-up question to anyone who might know. Is there, as per that paper that was just published that showed that ivermectin sensitized the tumor to T cell invasion, is there any paper, any scientific literature on the effect of ivermectin on T cell sensitization or activation? And is it working on the T cells, or is it working on the tumor to reduce its cloaking? I know that they put certain glycoproteins are on there to cloak themselves from the immune system or signaling molecules. If anybody has any input on that. Okay, well, we're just beginning.
Christina, if I could throw a little bit of light onto your earlier question, which was, whether the pre-vaccine and post-vaccine cancers respond equally to non-conventional treatment, or maybe yours was specifically about ivermectin, but much of my experience with cancers was in the pre-vaccine era, and we found that most cancers can be addressed using healing-based therapies in a holistic fashion. I mean, a diet, lifestyle changes, and using a whole bunch of other things that we mentioned just now. So it works very well. Now, in the post-vaccine era, we are seeing a subset of difficult to treat cancers. What I think the topic of today's conversation was, the turbocharged or the hyper-aggressive cancers. So we are seeing cancers being awakened, those that have been dormant for many years, that we have seen them in remission for 5-10 years suddenly being reactivated. And we're also seeing cancers that are appearing for the first time, but in a hyper-aggressive fashion. Now, fortunately, many of these are still treatable, but we are finding more and more of such cancers which are difficult to treat. Meaning, from diagnosis to death within like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, which I've been in oncology for now close to about 30 years. I've never seen cancers kill people in 4, 5, 6 weeks, but we are seeing some cancers in that hyper-aggressive state. So there is a difference. There is a difference, between these two groups. Now, exactly which mechanisms are being interfered with or coming into play, I'm not able to, throw any light on that yet.
All right, thanks. Thanks, that's helpful.
Dave, go ahead.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Yep, hi, Christina. Just getting back to your point about can ivermectin affect the balance of the T cells? There is a paper which was published 2nd of March last year, and you might have seen this, but ivermectin converts cold tumors hot and synergizes with immune checkpoint blockade for the treatment of breast cancer. And what they found is that it can upregulate the effector T cells and increase the ratio relative to the regulatory T cells. So before, the tumor is acting as a checkpoint inhibitor, and this process can help counter that. and basically enable the T cells to attack the tumor. So a hot cancer is basically one where it has the T cells, part of the immune system, present, but they may not be able to actually affect the tumor cells. So this is a very positive finding. What they did in this, they used it with the checkpoint inhibitor antibody treatments, which were basically given injected. So I put a link to that in the chat. Getting back to, if I talk about lactoferrin as well, that can also affect the balance of the immune system. If we go, it can change the M2 type healing macrophage over to the M1 type of macrophage that can attack the cancer cells. And that's another study that I've linked to earlier in the chat. If I find any other papers, I'll put the link here.
Thank you. I was noticing that many of these treatments are synergistic. Even in that one, it wasn't just the ivermectin. It was, as you said, I think some antibodies or something else. And I know tumors put off signaling molecules to disrupt the T cells and prevent them from coming into the tumor. And so, yeah, I was just trying to tease out, I haven't had time to do a deep dive into that paper, tease out the different contributions. So thank you, Dave.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Pujen Werther, you have a question?
Sorry, had a problem. Yes, I'm wondering if ivermectin could also deal with this foreign RNA to help cells breaking it down. Because as far as I know, this 100 pseudouridylated foreign RNA is so horrible to break down. Measured, for example, in the blood. I mean, let it melt down your tongue. They measured 15 days in the blood, naked RNA of this shot. So the question is, if we can't deal to make it faster breaking down, is there the risk that cancers would reactivate if it's not fast enough broken down? That's my question I have.
I'm afraid either we've not understood the question or we don't know the answer to the question. Can anybody try? Sorry, we can't respond to you. Any other questions from the floor? We've been going now for almost 3 hours, I think. Thank you very much, everybody. There's a question somewhere there. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, just a quick one is we're seeing excellent results shrinking prostate cancers and other cancer types, which is brilliant. But once we've reached the end goal of remission, would any of the doctors here recommend that you keep taking ivermectin and lactoferrin, or would that risk evasion by the tumor cells? Or should you just change your lifestyle, your diet, and do it through other means to support your immune system? So it's just getting that balance. Just thinking longer term here.
Now that things are coming up, actually it's not new. I think the approach to cancer is nutrition and lifestyle modification, along with certain new things like ivermectin and lactoferrin, and the other things that maybe their doctors have been using, like intravenous vitamin C, high dose. So cancer is cancer. It can be, you have to attack it in different directions in whatever we have. And I think metabolic therapy is the best, mainstay, like the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. But as I was saying, to do autophagy, you don't need to take 16 or longer hours of fasting, because there's ivermectin that accentuates autophagy. So I think we can approach it in different, a composite of different approaches, like metabolic therapy along with high dose intravenous vitamin C and even ivermectin lactoferrin together.
I think I'll echo what Dr. Lendrito has said, because I have not used ivermectin in cancer treatment, although I've used it a lot in COVID treatment. And from my experience of treating patients with prostate cancer, actually, we get very good results as well with vitamin C, hypothermia, and use of GnRH, gonadotropin blockers to lower testosterone levels, etc. And all these combinations work very well and very effectively to produce long-term cancer remission as well. So there is, I don't think, a single approach. One, two, I think the data that so far we have had to produce on the ivermectin is still, I would say, short-term data. We don't know, whether this requires long-term dependency. Generally, my approach has been that, we try not to develop drug dependency in healing. I think Dr. Shankara Chetty opened the session very well, in trying to bring us back to the basics of our existence, biology, natural science, and what really keeps us in health. So when we have had these derangements, these breakdowns, disorders resulting in disease, well, we engage in some of these interventions to restore that balance. But the long-term health should go back to the well-tried and tested formula of healthy living and going back to basics and so on and so forth. So I don't believe prostate cancer is a deficiency caused by a deficiency of ivermectin in our system, as I think none of the other cancers is because we are lacking ivermectin. But ivermectin is an amazing chemical, nutrient, whatever you want to call it, that seems to help us reset many things. But we should use it for those purposes. We should not develop the same problems as the pharmaceutical industry has led us into, that drug dependency. We say, look, okay, this drug works for this, so okay, you take this drug, for forever. I think we should be mindful of falling into that same trap. So I don't believe that any of these drugs need to be taken lifelong, to keep the disease at bay.
Excellent, and I fully agree with that. Go for diet, go try and put flavonoids in your diet and polyphenols, quercetin, which we get in onions, or you can supplement your vitamin C, your D, your zinc. Just go for general immune support and lifestyle. I intermittent fast 14 hours a day. It's quite simple to do. You don't feel hungry once you're adjusted to it. You just find yourself doing it. So yes, I would second that. Go with lifestyle.
If I can just add this one last point. You see, one of the first patients that triggered my interest in this healing of cancers started actually 10 years ago. So 19-year-old girl who had a stage 3C serous papillary adenocarcinoma. She had a huge tumor. She had a CA-125 of 33,000. And the parents could not accept the options offered to her, which was chemotherapy followed by completion surgery, which meant she would have had to remove her uterus, ovaries, and so forth. And she would have been rendered sterile for the rest of her life. So after many opinions, she came to me, and this was very, very early in my own understanding of how to heal cancers. And long story short, I did a conservative surgery. I took out the main tumor in the ovary, one of the ovaries. We did a debulking, omentectomy, and so on and so forth. But we used this peritoneal alkalinization, nutritional therapies, and supplements, etc. From a CA-125 of 33,000, in 8 weeks she normalized, and she has remained cancer-free for the last 10 years. She is married, she has got 2 children, and she has never, had a recurrence. She had not used any of the things that we have discussed.
I found this on the web.
Discussed so far, from IV, vitamin C, B17, only because I did not have access to any of this at that point. Why I mentioned this particular case is I think sometimes we can go overboard by attaching too much significance to a single therapy intervention, and so forth. And I think we must be mindful that there are things that work in a holistic way, and once they embrace normal healthy living, that they can beat back disease. So she has been around. So she is one of my longest surviving cancer patients. So I think, and she has never been been put back on any of this treatment that we have talked about. So we should keep an eye, follow them up, because we want to detect problems if they do recur. But many of them go off all of this and just go back to normal living.
That's excellent. Yep, great message of hope there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lutz. That is impressive. That case of yours is really impressive. We need to learn from you, Doctor. Larry, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, Manolo, because it's getting late. I would like to ask the doctors here if they have looked at the use of senolytics as part of the treatment of cancer. Thank you. Essentially, senolytics are used to get rid of senescent cells. In contrast with autophagy, which works inside cells, senolytics gets rid of senescent cells which should have died, which should have undergone apoptosis long ago, but are still there. They're not cancerous, but I had in mind of whether the use of senolytics can actually assist in as part of the adjunctive treatment for cancer. Okay.
We're silent, so I think no one has used it.
I've been looking at this, Dr. Lenrita, for several months now, and it's just so intertwined. It again goes with the microbiome and mitochondria dysfunction and mitophagy and all of that. I was just, I'm in the company of many well-read and very well-studied doctors, so I thought I'd throw that in there. But thank you. Perhaps in the next one.
So it's very good. All informations are coming up. Let me address Dr. Sparks' question on T-cell. I gone across one study on triple-negative breast cancer. These are the most difficult subtypes of breast cancers. And immune checkpoint inhibitors will not be effective in hot tumors. That means if the tumors are already infiltrated by T cells, right? But then when they use ivermectin, it promotes what they call the immunogenic cell death. by modulating P4, P2X7 pyrogenic pathway. It's so technical, but actually, apparently, it's leading to robust cells, T cell, attacking even the robust T cell infiltrated tumors. And ivermectin apparently is harnessing the tumor's intrinsic high extracellular level of ATP for its anti-cancer activity on that. So even the TNBC, ivermectin is acting on that. So I don't know if it shed lights on your question, Dr. Sparks.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Maribik, go ahead.
Dr. Allen, I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm on the, good evening, everyone. I'm very late because we
Go to raise hand.
Yeah, I just want to throw this idea in because the cancers that I've been getting are really the real train wreck. They're not just advanced, meaning they're the metastatic diseases, but they are really the rejects, meaning they've been through a lot of chemotherapy and the patients are just tired of getting the chemo because it's not doing anything. The disease is still progressing. Like I have what is she? She's breast cancer that metastasized to the lungs, and so I got her, and pleural effusion, pericardial effusion. She's in pain and all, and she just stopped the chemotherapy because it was just making her miserable and very sick. So I mean, probably everybody is dealing with this type of cases differently because we have to use so many agents just to help the patient. So I started the high dose ivermectin in the combination of lactoferrin, but on top of that, high dose melatonin, high dose vitamin C, but the patient seems to be responding. So I don't know the mechanism because, I mean, it's a completely different ball game when you have a ravaged immune system already because of all the chemotherapies that this patient got. So I don't have, I'm just throwing that idea that we have this kind of patient, and it's just good to find out later probably how these agents that we're trying to introduce are helping this kind of people. I have 4 patients of this type, and I'm just throwing in not just the kitchen sink, but all the garage, the things in my garage. So basically, it's like that. And
Doc Maribik,
yes.
Maribik, we've got 2 cases like that with us. They've tried everything. They've tried chemotherapy, everything, and both of them are responding very, very well. We don't know yet if it's going to be enough. Like you said, throwing everything you have available. But so far, they seem to be much better. At least their energy level is much better. They're urinating much better. And these are rejects. These are people who come to us already with, with no other options really. So this will be.
If I could give a little bit of hope to patients like what Maribik has mentioned, I spoke about this 19-year-old girl just now. A few months after I treated this patient, this is also almost about 10 years ago, I had this Indonesian patient who had ovarian cancer, a very advanced ovarian cancer, stage 4 at the time of diagnosis. She was very young, she was only about 45. And she, in fact, she had a bit more complicated history. She had endometriosis, she had multiple surgeries, and then she had 2 cesarean sections for child pregnancy, etc. But at 45, she developed stage 4 ovarian cancer with, pleural effusion and so forth. So they did the standard thing in Indonesia. They did a THBSO and, first line of chemotherapy, carbotaxol, 6 cycles. She seems to respond. As it often happens with ovarian cancer, about hardly 9-10 months later, she came back with a recurrence. They tried a second line, it didn't work. Then, they tried to go back in and reoperate her. But by then, this was the 6th surgery because she has had, endometriosis surgery, cesarean section, the first surgery, the 6th surgery. They said, no, they couldn't enter. It was an open, close case, and told her, look, this is palliative. Now, I'm seeing this patient now with this huge tumor, abdominal pelvic mass, infiltrating everything in the, pelvis, bladder, rectum, and the whole works. And she has tried everything, short of giving her a palliative dose of abdominal, say whole abdominal radiotherapy. She had really not much options, but she was open to trying something new. So we offered her this option and said, look, we'll try and debulk a tumor, and we will incorporate at the same time as an adjuvant, there's high-dose vitamin C, vitamin B17, and so forth. Long story short, this was an extremely, terrible, difficult surgery, when you do a recurrent surgery and a laparotomy for the 6th time. Now, I did the surgery, so I know what I left behind. We had to reimplant the ureter and, resect segments of the bladder. And although we took out about 90% of the cancer, there was still about 10% of cancer we couldn't take out without doing terrible harm to her. But the beauty was 5.5 weeks after this surgery, she actually was cancer-free. A palliative patient with recurrent ovarian cancer, having failed everything, she was cancer-free. I was stunned because this was new to me. 10 years ago, this was totally new to me. I could not brain this. This was something, it took me a while to digest. But when I understood it, I said, oh my God, as an oncologist, I've been looking at all the wrong things. I have not, thought about the fact that, look, patients can heal, heal from impossible situations. That was 10 years ago. She's still alive today. In between, at 2 occasions, almost about 30 months apart, she had a recurrence in the abdominal wall, which we did just a, wide local excision. And, the same thing was repeated a 2nd time. But otherwise, she has been extremely well. She is, pretty much a healthy person. So that case opened my eyes that there is no such thing as, you can't, treat a patient having failed all of this conventional treatment. This was the first case. I can give you many, many, many more patients who have failed conventional treatment, who have gone on to heal their cancers. So no, don't give up. Give it, give everything that you have. As you said, throw the kitchen sink at them if you have to.
Yeah. And one more comment, okay, on the prostate people. I've been doing a lot of hormone replacement therapy, but bioidentical, including testosterone. I use testosterone on prostate cancer patient. I use because after they've been through a lot of the chemotherapy, they just kill everything. And these people can get up and they don't have any energy. I mean, imagine a guy with almost 0 testosterone, that guy is not going to get up. I'm not talking about getting up, Peter getting up, but you getting up. You don't have. And so I trained when we were doing the hormone replacement therapy. There's this guy from Boston, Dr. Morgan Taller. He's been doing the prostate cancer, and he has done a lot of the, biopsy of these people over 20, 25 years. And he is one of the guys right now that's actually treating prostate cancer with testosterone in conjunction with whatever he is doing. He doesn't believe that the testosterone is the one causing the cancer. Yes, it increases your PSA because the prostate will respond to the testosterone therapy, but it doesn't aggravate the cancer. That's his finding over these 20 years of doing biopsies and study of the prostate cancer. I have to dive into that. he has other mechanism that he mentioned, but I don't remember all of them. But you guys can look up the work of Abraham Morgenthaler. He's from Boston, so he's one of the. I just want to throw that in. Probably next time if I join your conference again, I can elaborate more on that. Why testosterone is not, completely bad for prostate cancer. Yeah, it's bad when you just base your monitoring on the level of the PSA, because every time you throw in the testosterone, it's going to increase your PSA, but it does not mean that your prostate cancer is actually getting worse. So just want to throw that in. And yeah, that's that.
Thank you, Dr. Marivic. One last question before we do a close. Jen Berter?
Can I direct my question to Dr. Alan Landito?
Sure, Pa.
Yeah. High dose vitamin C is gaining ground as an alternative treatment for cancer. I'd like to ask if we can combine high dose vitamin C with ivermectin and lactoferrin.
Yes.
We're starting to use high dose vitamins.
High dose intravenous vitamin C.
Yes, that's right. High dose intravenous
It's
vitamin
an adjunct in treatment of cancer. It's not by itself. By itself, it can't really give a cure on cancer. I don't know if they have done that, no. But we've been giving very high dose vitamin C. By itself, it won't cure the cancer. It's just way of helping as an adjunct in treatment, helping address the many oxidation process that has brought about the condition, no? But then the very reason why we're here is I think Manolo's message here is, cancer is really a very complicated problem, but we can to deal with the complicated problem, we simplify the problem. And if we go along the line of the oncologists, of the surgeons and all that, it's really we're going to get lost and won't find really a way more sensible than we can do than what they're doing, in using chemotherapy and radiotherapy. So it's a proposal by the organizer here, by Manolo, Larry, myself, and I think Dr. Chetty. Why don't we give a try on ivermectin, lactoferrin together in attacking the cancer problem? Since I've been telling earlier on, 70% of cancers are going through the pathway of PAK1, and ivermectin is inhibiting the PAK1. So we're addressing a lot of cancers already, and lactoferrin they found really is also very effective on cancer and many other problems other than cancer. And we put them together, and that's why Manolo is giving out the news to all of us. Here is what we're getting. In just 1, 2 months or 3 months experience, we're getting this very significant result. And we're not so aggressive. I mean, we're not invasive in doing it. We're just giving two very safe medicine, no adverse effect, maybe some side effects, but not adverse effect at all. And we're getting even other benefits, no? In my experience, it has been established that ivermectin has 4 properties: antiparasitic, antiviral, immunomodulator, and anti-cancer. I am adding 8 more that I've been consistently seeing. It's an antibacterial. We have seen super germs. Not germs that are, like Klebsiella and some other germs acquired from the hospitals, not responding to their treatment for months, and when we gave ivermectin in 10 days, it's controlled. It's also an anti-inflammatory. It's also an analgesic and a sedative. So I'm adding those 5 according to my experience, mine only. But then what I'm trying to say here is a very simple medicine like ivermectin, like lactoferrin. We combine them, it makes a synergistic effect. And since these 2 are very safe, these are all natural. Lactoferrin is coming from colostrum. Ivermectin is a bacterial byproduct. and it's very effective at cancer. And we're just new to the idea. I think the idea is, why don't we give it a try and getting ideas on what we have been doing, and we can even modify and make better out of it. We succeed in attacking cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer
Thank
is
you.
a very complicated problem. We can make it simple and
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, doctor.
vitamin
Can I
C.
just add one small comment to
Yeah.
Dr. Vito's remark? I think I agree with most of what he said, but I've been using vitamin C for the last 10 years. And I think it is an utilized, and most people don't fully appreciate how powerful and useful it is. There are many cancers that can be not just palliatively improved, can be cured, can be reversed with long-term results. But there is also misconception among many that sometimes vitamin C is promoted as a cure-all thing, that it cures all cancers. No, it doesn't cure all cancers. Also, for the same reason that Dr. Landrito has mentioned, that there are specific metabolic derangements and pathways and so forth, and there are cancers that are can be manipulated using the pro-oxidative pathways that vitamin C in high doses induces in these cancers. So do not dismiss this. This is not just my experience. I've only had this experience for the last 10 years, from Linus Pauling to the Riordan Clinic, and I think there are many, many others that have vast experience over many decades using vitamin C effectively. So do use it in a way that can benefit the patients. But whatever that I've learned so far from the early use of ivermectin lactoferrin in combination gives me great hope and excitement that there may be another easy, low cost, without too much invasive therapies involved as another option, and that excites me as well. So I think let us look at this in a broader, holistic sense. Not just this. I mean, I take it this conversation is not just about ivermectin and lactoferrin. It is about dealing with cancer as a whole, and whichever methods that work well, I think we should be open to utilizing them.
Dr. Vijendra, if I may interrupt. Thank you for highlighting the high dose in vitamin C intravenous as a pro-oxidant treatment for cancer. Would you also consider the use of glutathione IV as an antioxidant, alternately with high dose vitamin C IV? Thank you.
Okay, this is a bit more controversial area. There are two schools of thoughts. There's a school of thought that thinks glutathione would negate the pro-oxidant effects of high-dose vitamin C and therefore render it less effective. And there's another school of thought that thinks, it probably doesn't do any harm to use glutathione in high doses. My experience has been on both sides. Why I say both sides? As a conventional oncologist that started my journey into healing-based therapies, I was not sure which was the right thing to do. So I had my early years using glutathione as well as vitamin C in combination, and we actually saw very good results. But as more and more longer-term experts felt that maybe that was not the right thing, so I stopped using glutathione concurrently with IV vitamin C. Also, we saw good results. So I'm a bit confused myself, whether one is there is a single right way of doing it. So my approach currently is where I am trying to employ this pro-oxidant effect using high dose vitamin C. I do not use glutathione, but once the cancer is in remission, then in the longer term control of that disease, that I do use glutathione.
Thank you, doctor. The reason why I asked that is that many of the, or rather some, not many, but some of the literatures I've read about this discussed the use of glutathione IV and then 2 weeks later it would be vitamin C IV high dose, and then so there's an interregnum between the use of both, and these are done alternately. I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
I don't use that sequential protocol only for the reason that most of our patients come from very far away. They can't keep coming back and forth, to the clinics at just as we wish them. And especially, cancer treatment is not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. There is economics issues, there are job issues, social issues. So we modified this treatment and we do intensive treatment of IV for about 5 to 6 days. And we don't do that sequential treatment. We have a very high rate of cancer remission. So my opinion is formed from those observations and data that using glutathione, in either of this fashion didn't seem to, substantially affect the outcomes. That has been my, observation.
Thank you so much, doctor. Thank you.
Dr. Vijay.
Hi.
Yeah. Well, lately my experience with the use of glutathione and IV vitamin C, when I use the glutathione, I always mix it with the high dose vitamin C only in lower doses. Like I don't exceed 3 grams of the glutathione when I mix it with a high dose IV vitamin C. If I have to give a high dose IV glutathione, I put it separately, which is equivalent to your sequential description. I find it, because I'm a pulmonologist, I'm not an oncologist, but you get all this, chop suey of cases. And so lately, especially with the COVID, I have so many, literally so many reactivation of the latent infection, of the latent viruses and the latent bacterial infection like Lyme's. I find it very effective if you use the glutathione, the high dose, but in the sequential, manner or fashion. And so I use up to 10 grams of the glutathione in 1 week. And especially when I'm doing it for the 6 weeks. And then you can see they're coming back, their fatigue goes down. But I haven't tried it enough or long enough on the cancer patient because, for the reason that I don't get the cancer patient. But I think lately, some cancer patients are putting my name out there, and so they're coming in. And so I will see. I don't think there's any danger if you use the glutathione. I'm very comfortable using that. I infuse it in the office and I can see how they are, and I monitor, the blood and blah, 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 everything. And so let's see. But with the infectious, situation, I think it's working very well. I'm able to alleviate the fatigue, the severe fatigue that goes with the vaccine injury complication and the reactivation of the latent or dormant infections. Okay.
I've no doubt, that your results are good, in part because of these interventions. The reason we try and avoid concurrent use is just out of abundance of caution, although as I feel that I don't really think it makes that much difference. So yes.
Yes, see, we'll try.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bisandre and Dr. Marivic. Doc Ellie, are you still with us here? Doc Ellie was here a while back. In case you wanted to say something.
I'm with you. I actually had a question for Dr. Vijandra about the, if you could share your vitamin C protocol with us.
Okay. In fact, I maybe have just modified it slightly from the Riordan protocol. The Riordan protocol, calls for a slow start and escalation, up to higher dose. I've never had to go into high doses. For most of the patients, we use about 30 grams. Sometimes we go up to double that dose, about 60 grams. What started out as a way to manage patients' convenience, because a lot of our patients are overseas patients. They come and they can't stay for very long spells. So we started off by trying to compress the treatment into a shorter time. So we did a week of intensive treatment, like about 6 days, Monday to Saturday, daily 30 grams IV. And then we take a break for about 2 weeks. We get them back, we reassess them. If they show good response, then we continue until they have documented remission. If they're not responding, then we look at what other things that should be added on. So that has been the general protocol that we have used. Very different from, I think, the usual maybe twice a week or 3 times a week kind of a thing, only because we were trying to manage the logistic issues of getting patients to be at the treatment facility for such long spells. Because when it is difficult, there is poor compliance. And then when it is poor compliance, then, we are not able to, I think, get the best out of results. But it has worked out very well, actually. I mean, this was just a pure, guess, best guess of what to do in this situation. But it has worked out very well because we have a very high rate of remission, not just palliative or symptomatic improvement, but actual remissions. So that is what we have stuck to for the time being.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Vijandra, Dr. Kelly. If there are no more questions, maybe we can have Dr. Chetty start the goodbyes, unless we have another question.
Yes, one last question, please. I wonder if some of you have also made experience with bicalene, because there is a lot of studies done that show a very good effect on treating cancers. That would be interesting.
So, sorry, what is the I didn't get the first part of
it. Bicalene.
Alkalinization, is that?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. I do have some experience. This was one of, in fact, when I mentioned about this 19-year-old girl, 10 years ago that had stage 3C papillary serous adenocarcinoma of the ovary. In fact, we did this peritoneal alkalinization as a post-operative therapy. We did it daily for 6 weeks. What we did was we post-surgically, I left in an indwelling catheter and we infused this alkaline solution in a 3-way tap, and then we released it the next morning, and then we re-infused it, and we repeated this procedure for about 6-7 days. I think it is one of the most amazing therapies, low cost, simple to do, and very effective for widespread peritoneal disease. Because ovarian cancer, is something that typically involves the peritoneal surfaces, diaphragmatic surfaces and so forth. And we found that actually using this, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, using this and a combination of vitamin C and vitamin B17, that up to 55 to 60% of patients with stage 3, stage 4, and recurrent ovarian cancers could go into remission without the use of any chemotherapy. So I think it's a highly effective. I mean, this was something that I picked up from Tullio Simoncini, the first person I knew who talked about alkalinization and so and so. I thought it was something so simple and so basic, cost nothing. I thought, okay, let me try this. And that 19-year-old girl was the first patient that I tried. And I mean, it worked like magic, and since then I've used that, and I still use that.
Can I add? Yeah, the doctor whom I was mentioning who had a fist-sized gallbladder cancer and completely cured from it after 14 months, was taking high-dose ivermectin along with an alkaline capsule. She never revealed to us what alkaline capsule she's using. And may we know what alkaline injections you've been giving intraperitoneally, Dr. Vijayendrah?
The intravenous 8.4% sodium bicarbonate, which we use, for metabolic acidosis and so forth. So I use about 300 mils of this. Maybe in a smaller patient, I use a smaller volume, diluted with 1/5 dextrose saline or distilled water, and we infuse it in a ratio of 3:2. So 300 mils of sodium bicarb and 200 mils of 1/5 dextrose saline. Or in smaller patients, we just reduce it by say 30% or 40%. Some patients can't tolerate that because they have a bit of discomfort when we infuse them.
And you do it daily, Doc?
Yeah, I do that daily. I do that daily in the post-operative setting because I leave an indwelling catheter, and I do that daily, yes.
With that amount, Doc, will it not promote metabolic alkalosis?
Okay. In a small number, they do get a little bit of hypokalemia. So we do monitor, like every 3 days, we check their electrolytes. And then, that can be easily corrected. But other than that, actually, I've not encountered any other significant, derangement that was an issue.
Thank you,
Dr. Vijayendrah, I'd like to add another question while we're talking about this. Sodium bicarbonate. We're giving sodium bicarbonate to some of our patients, some of the people with us, and we're noticing very good results. Just sodium bicarbonate. And one of the doctors with us was suggesting to look at the urine levels, okay, to sort of be able to check on a daily basis how we're able to bring down the alkalization of the body with this stage. Have you used it for your cancer patients as an oral application, bicarbonate?
Yes,
giving them bicarbonate.
I actually do. I give them sodium bicarbonate. They have the aluminum-free version.
Yes.
That we give them, like 1 teaspoon once a day, twice a day. We check the urine pH, and we try to aim it for about pH of 8 or so. And it is an amazing.
Doctor, we're doing that. We're doing exactly what you're saying. That's why I asked you what was your dose. We're doing about 1 teaspoon. We're spreading it during the day, and that's why I wanted to know what dosing you were doing orally. So you're giving up to 2 teaspoons, huh? And you're aiming for
in the early stage when they have large tumor burden, and we know there is a lot of. I think Dr. Rodrigo has mentioned this already. Because of the glycolysis and the metabolic acidosis that happens. So we do use a little bit higher dose, maybe up to 2 teaspoons a day, and then we bring it down as the cancer, responds and she goes into remission. Yeah.
And you want your pH, pH, your urine pH at 8. That's your target.
I try to aim it to about 7.5 to 8, yeah. Because a lot of them come in with pH of like 5, 5.5, or even much.
Fantastic, doctor. That was really wonderful. This because I just needed to hear the confirmation from this other doctor.
10 years. 10 years I've been using this.
Fantastic, doctor. You don't know how happy you've made me, doctor, with this information. Because that's what we're testing. We're giving that with the lactoferrin and the ivermectin with some of these harder cases. We're giving them that, and we're getting fantastic results, doctor. And that's add-on. It's an add-on. It's an add-on. I think.
Can I ask one more question? Dr. Vijayendra, you're saying 10 years to your patient or personally to yourself?
Sorry?
Are you using sodium bicarb 1 teaspoon daily?
No. I've been using it in my patients for 10 years. I use it intermittently. I mean, I'm not a very good patient. I'm just not compliant.
I thought you were using it personally for 10 years.
No. I use it intermittently.
I think we should end. We've been going on for so many hours. I am so delighted with the conversation we have tonight. Dr. Chetty, thank you for being with us here. Come on and say something. This is delightful.
Yeah, it's really heartwarming to see the collaboration of different techniques around the world. This brings a lot of hope for cancer patients. I think we need to form a society almost of lateral thinkers who are willing to try things outside the box, who are willing to come together. It might not be something that's financially viable, but none of us here are looking at that. I think all of us care for our patients too much and will bend over backwards for them. And so I think I must thank Dr. Vijayan for joining I was hoping that he'd join and share his broad base of knowledge with us. And I'm glad that he's been here to do that. So I think, the next step would be to get all the doctors interested in trying this on patients and not being so scared to try and address cancers as we see them. This doesn't need to go down the route of chemotherapy and radiation and all that. With the turbo cancers we're seeing, I'm sure the oncologists are going to have their hands full. And even we as GPs can initiate certain measures that might be of assistance to the patient. So I must thank everyone for being here today, all the speakers that were there. Yeah, it's brought a lot of light and a lot of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you, doctors.
Manuel, I think you're muted. You're saying something. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, everybody. I cannot describe the happiness, the hope of bringing people together. And like the doctors have said and shared, this information we have to pass on to everybody else, and we have to document these cases, because if we don't document these cases, nobody will know about it. We have to share this information, document this information, and help one another. And in the U.S., for example, we've been able to find a way of getting ivermectin, just like in the Philippines, for example, at a cheap price. So there's a pharmacy that's doing this for us, and this is what we're trying to do now in Spain, and in all of the other countries we want to do this with. And so thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for being here with us. More soon. Thank you.
Bye. Very nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Chetty, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much, Dr. Vijay.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure, real pleasure. Thank you.
It's the start of a journey, not the end of one.
Thank you very much.
We'll meet soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.